evening, everyone, and welcome. Tonight we have our board workshop of the Bay City ISD Board of Trustees. It is 6 p.m. and we are in the H.J. McAllister Administration Building. This public meeting will be accessible and open to the public via audience with patrons. First, I just want to say thank everyone for coming out. You can tell that an issue is important and a lot of people show up. So to everybody who took time out of their busy schedules this evening to be here, thank you very much. We definitely value your input. As far as audience with patrons goes, I'll call the names one at a time, whatever order they're in the folder. 3 minutes is the limit. I'll set a timer. At 1 minute, I'll just give a soft reminder that 1 minute is remaining. The board will listen intently. We're not going to be engaging with you during your comments because that 3 minutes is yours. If you have anything to hand the board, please hand it to Chief. And other than that, try not to say the names of any students or staff. If you have a complaint, you certainly are allowed to, it's your right. But if it comes before us as a grievance at a level 3 board grievance, and we've heard too much of it ahead of time, it may interfere with our ability to hear that. I hope to hear not only some issues that are going on, but potentially what your thoughts are on how to fix some things, right? Some improvements. So with that being said, we will start. Item 1, the meeting is called to order. We have a quorum of trustees present, 6 trustees in attendance tonight. Item 2, audience with patrons. Whitney Wilford.
Talk about an intimidating night to be here. I am a member of the community, but more so an alumni of Bay City ISD, where I was born and raised. And I won't give you the year of graduation, those of you who can do math in your head to know my age. But a lot has changed since the time of graduation to my experience being back for the first time in 15 years at a football game on October the 22nd. An unfortunate night of events as I watched your students be criminalized for activities that are not present in your student code of conduct. Though I do not reside in Matagorda County, I took the time to read every one of your campus's code of conducts, including those of your ISD and your stadium, because it matters to me how you're treating your students, and more so how your employees, your teachers, your staff are treated. I'm standing here as a prime example of an at-risk student. I was the proverbial juvenile delinquent. As a matter of fact, my senior year, I spent more time in AEP and Saturday SAC to recover credits than I did in your classrooms with your amazing teachers. Had I not been the dance team captain, and probably, if we're quite honest, the color of my skin, I would be roaming the streets today. Had it not been for the staff of Bay City ISD that took the time to know me and my issues. In your code of conduct, you do not leave room for students to have personalities to deal with the emotions that young people are facing today, the societal conflicts that are going on not only with our pandemic, but social media. I'm involved as a foster parent of 6 students currently, not only raising my 3 high school students, and I work with young teenagers all over the state and implement new policies in ISDs. I'm also a grant writer, putting money back into school district to reach students just like myself, whose school districts are not reaching. I do want you to know students were criminalized on your property on Friday, October the 22nd. There was no relationship from the school staff and those students who simply were there to enjoy school spirit. There must be more that teachers can do to reach these students without being penalized, without laws being broken, so that students just as myself can make a future for themselves without becoming criminals that you very clearly will take my complaint at a later date, including Title IX violations of 2 students. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Lynette Cooper.
Good evening. Dear Bay City ISD Central Administration staff and school board members, my name is Lynette Cougar, and I am currently, and have been for the past 28 years, the school nurse at Cherry Elementary. I have given a lot of thought to the discipline problems in our district. While I have not experienced all of the behavior problems firsthand, I too have heard of students being out of control with the lack of discipline and, more importantly, consequences not being enforced at Bay City Junior High. I have been told that since DAEP is back in place, the number of fights has gone down. That's a good thing. I have heard of students assaulting students and being sent back to class at Tenny Holmes Elementary. I have heard of students running the halls at Lenny Roberts. Once again, I have not seen these actions myself. This is, however, our community's perception of student behavior and discipline problems in our district. What I have seen on Cherry's campus are students' behaviors absolutely and totally out of control every day. I see multiple students in the nurse's office for evaluations after being kicked, slapped, pinched, spit on by repeat offenders, these students who are out of control. I see teachers crying every day because they are at their wits' end. Not only are they on the receiving end of the physical, verbal, and emotional abuse, they are worried that their other students are not being effectively educated. I see the counselor spending one-on-one with behavior problems, affecting her ability to do classroom guidance, and we need that with our students. In my 29 years on my campus, I have never seen the likes of our discipline problems or lack of solutions to correct the issues at hand. While I'm not an educator, I have seen behaviors managed effectively at Cherry with both a behavior teacher as well as a PASS program. I understand there are not many applicants for said positions. I do know that our district will continue to lose strong, effective teachers to surrounding districts and other professions if something isn't done to support them. I have spoken to my administrators. They're not turning a blind eye. They too spend a lot of time chasing kids at Cherry. If the school board really wants a true picture of how we feel about issues, distribute a survey. Put it on plain white paper. Don't ask for any identifying information. Not your campus, your years of service, what you do. Because people are afraid to speak up. Thank you for the opportunity to share my feelings and concerns. I am not only a Bay City ISD employee, but a grandparent of students in our district. I miss the confidence I once had of a safe and effective learning environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Randy Stein.
Dear Bay City ISD school board members, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak at this meeting. I feel that you truly want to hear what is going on in the schools, and I appreciate that. My name is Brandy Sy, and I have been with the district for 18 years. I have loved my years in the district up until this year. This year, I want to quit. This year, I'm having panic attacks, and as of last week, I am having to take anxiety medicine. Last week, my blood pressure reached 234/126. Let me repeat that, 234/126. I was assessed at the doctor's office. All my blood work was normal. I asked the doctor what could cause my blood pressure to get this high, and her response was stress and anxiety. Why is my blood pressure when monitored at home normal, but it reached 236 over 126 at school? What changed this year? This year, it is the behaviors that I'm dealing with and the lack of support that I am getting. Please understand that I am a special education teacher. This is my calling. This is my why. I am here to help my students. I have a passion for it. With my job, there are challenges. However, when I ask for help and I'm told first to collect data on the students, when I'm already shorthanded and needing help, can become very frustrating. When I'm asked to help and my leaders go and send somebody from Region 3 to go in there and tells me the same thing, you need a data collect, it gets very frustrating. Okay? I can have behaviors every 2 minutes. So in order to get support, I must data collect. Okay, we got that. But in order for me to data collect, I need to have additional people into my classroom because again, I'm shorthanded. But in order to go and get that data collection, you have to have more people. But if I'm not given more people, then how am I supposed to data collect? So it goes round and round. The teacher can only do so much. I recommend that we have a behavior specialist on our campus. This would be someone that would come into our classroom to collect data and provide strategies for our students. Coping skills need to be taught for these students, but it can't fall on just the teachers. Some of these classes have 21 other students in their classroom. Their focus cannot just be on that one student. The behaviors that I'm seeing involve students throwing things, running other classrooms, defiancy, and it definitely many more issues than I'm sure you'll hear about now. This year, many teachers have already quit. Many teachers are going home crying. It's a tough year. Add that to our new legislation requiring tutoring and Saturday academy. Now teachers are being asked to work even more hours. Of course, teachers are being paid to do these things, but time off needs to be able to unwind is more valuable too. In my 18 years, I do not believe that I've seen morale this low. Teachers are tired and stressed out. With that being said, it seems every day more and more is being thrown at us. We talk day in and day out about the effects of this pandemic on our students. But this is what I want to hear. Who is talking about the effects that this pandemic is doing to our teachers? Amen. More and more teachers are just there. More and more is just being thrown at us, and we are expected to deal with it. Our administrators are spending their time in the hallways with students. I do not know how the administrators have time to complete all their other work with all the time that they are dealing with discipline matters. So please, listen to all the staff that they're expressing, how they are feeling and their experiences tonight. Thank you for your time.
Valerie, Jaramillo.
Hi, my name is Valerie Jaramillo. I am a staff member, a parent, and a former Black Hat. I am here tonight speaking on behalf of other paraprofessionals and teachers. The students are out of control. We are seeing total disrespect to adults and other students. There is vulgar and inappropriate talk from the students. Fights are on the rise. Students walk out of classrooms if they are unhappy or angry about something. We also feel that teachers are having a hard time teaching due to the constant disruption and distractions from the same students. We feel that more structure is needed on campus. For example, on most days, we have 2 to 3 adults per grade level to monitor the cafeteria. That is 12 classes with 2 to 3 adults for 30 minutes. If there was more structure in halls, cafeteria, and other places, maybe the behavior in the classroom would improve. We have also had instances where students have put their hands on an adult. To my knowledge, they are sent home a day and returned. Multiple times when telling students they are going to be written up, their response is, "It doesn't matter, nothing will happen." This makes us feel as though there are not enough consequences, and the students know this. Due to lack of space, our ISS is in a small conference room. Many kids have said it's fun in there. We are short-staffed and there is not a consistent ISS teacher. Therefore, the routine in ISS changes. I would think this is not the best practice. To sum it up, we need help. Our teachers and staff are overwhelmed, including our administrators. We are using CHAMPS, PBIS, SELs to improve the behavior, but like anything, it does not work for everyone. Thank you.
Haley Eckelbaum.
I'm fabulous. Good evening. At first, we'd like to say thank you so much again for giving us and myself an opportunity to speak to you regarding behavior. And I am at Cherry Elementary. My name again is Kaylee Essenbaum. This is my 10th year teaching kindergarten. I absolutely love it. I have a passion for teaching kindergarten. Not to me on third or fourth or fifth grade. Sorry. I would just first like to express the urgent need for additional support regarding behavior at Cherry Elementary. Our students are struggling. They're struggling with some deep behavior issues. We are needing some additional support. Our administrators are spending countless hours dealing with this constant behavior that could be used in other areas on our campus. For example, due to the large amount of behavior problems on our campus, we're not able to have our counseling sessions. Our social and emotional guidance sessions for our other classrooms is kind of at a halt because we're having to focus our needs on those behavior students. And I just want to stress the importance of getting those students the help that they need. And the parents, getting those parents the help that they need as well. I'm sure they're not only seeing this behavior at school, I'm sure those parents are seeing the behavior at home too. And so how can we help those students and those families dealing with the things that they probably are just at a loss, just like we are. So I am asking, this is not on my script, I'm just asking for some additional behavior support on our campus so we can get our families the help that they need. Thank you, and get them.
Blythe Kudella. Did I say that right?
Hello, I'm Blythe Cadella. I teach at Cherry Elementary pre-K. And kind of going on what Kaylee just said, we need a lot of help with our behaviors. We are the basics of learning for these kids. And if we can get this behavior under control, even a little bit in pre-K and kindergarten, the behaviors will get better all throughout school. We need our counselors to be able to counsel our kids.
Our kids have a right to come to school and not be scared that they're going to be hurt by another student. My children have a right to know that their mommy's not going to get hurt by a student in her class. That they don't come in every day asking me, Mommy, did you get hurt today? They have a right to not be scared that a chair is going to get thrown at them or somebody's going to sucker punch them in the face or choke them. We need behavior support for these kids. Not just getting out of the room for 10, 15 minutes. That is not enough for these other children to get to learn and to feel safe in their classroom. We need a behavior team to be able to take these children that have these severe behavior problems out of the room and give them the help that they need one-on-one. I am supposed to teach all 22 of my students, and I cannot focus on any one child, just that one kid. The other 21 are getting left out. I have special ed students in my room that I haven't been able to focus on to help as much as they need because of my behavior child. And something has to be done if we're going to have Bay City ISD be a great school district. where teachers want to come and want to stay. The morale is so low. Every day, teachers are crying, not wanting to come back to work. I have never seen it this bad in my life. This is my 15th year in this district, and I love my school and my district. But this has to get better, or you're going to be losing a whole lot of teachers. So, thank you.
Please state your name.
It's a great one to follow. So I apologize for my mouth. And I can't hear me. I can probably piggyback on everyone who's come up here. But I've been the crying teacher. I spent hours with Mrs. Cummings, thank you, consoling me, just, we're gonna get through this, we're gonna get through this. Dr. Scott Eden has heard from me several times. We need a change. I think that the way that we are approaching discipline is not working. And so the referrals, it's not that they're not scared of it or not, they don't care about it or nothing happens. I think that we are just approaching it in the wrong way. It's reactive instead of proactive, and that is what you're hearing from the other teachers, is having that social, emotional learning, that behavior specialist, that behavior coach. So I think that our students are different, not only just because of the pandemic, but because of their absolute access to anything they want 24/7 with any kind of media that they have. And I think that it's hard to turn that off. It's hard to turn off the emotion of that and bring the issues that were on social media. Sorry, I'm not choosing that. To school. A lot of our problems that we see are outside. It happened in a family party this weekend and they're bringing it to school, or the media, because so-and-so mentioned something about them on Instagram or Snapchat, and that's exhausted the administration dealing with those types of things. So I think what they're seeing is a lot. They're different. And the behavior that we have seen addressed before this, it's worked. We've been able to nip it with the management that we have, and it's not working anymore. I believe that social emotional learning must be implemented into our curriculum by behavior specialists, by interventionists, as the other teachers have already said. We are moving in that direction at Bay City Junior High. We have positive talk of that with MTSS, and so I think that we're going to start seeing a change, hopefully. But our students and even our teachers, as you see, we're coming with loads of, I don't want to say baggage, but it is, our suitcases are packed full, and just like the kids, and we're trying to walk in and act like, open your books and let's read for 10 minutes. No, like, we have to address not even just good things. I mean, it's beyond that. So we need a talk about, how do I get through this? What is the conflict resolution? I mean, just last week it was referring 3 of my kids for suicide. I want it, I'm done, I'm over it. Like, it's time. That's not okay, and it's not okay for me to go, okay, get out of the room so we can start the lesson. Like, there needs to be something in place for that, and our counselors, as they said, are also stepping in to deal with discipline. So, the broken home, the bullying, the loads that we not only carry, but loss of loved ones due to COVID, like picking up those pieces. And I feel like that's what it is we're kind of all in pieces, and we need something to pick that up. And I really do feel like implementing this social emotional learning is, even in junior high, like a certain period, a class, pull out groups to implement, how do I deal with all of this baggage that I have, because I can't come and learn. And that's why I'm acting up. So, and just the conversation isn't cutting it. Like, we need skills for these kids, right? And maybe some of us teachers. So we need, us educators need this. We really do need this system. And if we don't step up and do it, what's that doing for our community? Because they're part of us, and we're raising them to hopefully stay here and thrive. And also as teachers. I'm not from here, but I'm not leaving. because I love these people that I work with, and I will stand by all of them, because this is my calling, but these kids need us to step up and offer them more support.
Dr. Rhonda Green. She's the one on the phone? Okay. Dr. Green, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you, thank you.
Awesome. I'm gonna set a timer for 3 minutes and just give a real soft reminder at 1 minute, but the floor is yours.
Thank you. So first of all, good evening to the board president, superintendent, and trustees. My name is Dr. Rta Green. I was born and raised in Bay City, completed all of my years in Bay City ISD, except for the last two. I'm very interested in what is going on in the district because most of my family is still there, and I'm currently involved with my cousin in a situation with Bay City ISD. So this is not someone from out of town who is taking an interest in a local issue. I am local community. First and foremost, I think my sentiments resonate with everyone. As a current education administrator, I don't think the issues we're discussing tonight are unique to Bay City ISD. This is happening in every community around us. So I think the feelings of teachers, support staff are real. My comment is tonight that we must keep the focus on the student and how do we equip all staff members to be able to serve the student from a restorative mindset and a restorative place. I know the topic was discipline and the kids are out of control is what we commonly hear, but I think all of your staff tonight have told you as a result of the pandemic and before the pandemic, the community has changed, so the needs are greater. So how are we equipping families, students, and staff to deal with the current reality in our community? I think my interest tonight is that the state has clear guidelines that need to be followed when we're operating as a public entity, so that local entities cannot select the students that they want to educate. Public school districts, we have to operate differently from private institutions because the reality is without students, there is no funding and there are no jobs. In universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds passes in Texas, we're going to see an increase in the behaviors that the teachers have mentioned in pre-K. So we have to be prepared as school districts and systems to deal with what is coming our way. So I urge you to look at the data disaggregated by demographics so that we have a clear picture of how do we support the teachers, how do we support the staff, how do we support the students and the families. Where does the additional support need to be placed in the district? Everyone has a heart for children, and I haven't heard anyone say anything about removing students, but it seems that they're sharing that they're not prepared or equipped. So to me, the conversation needs to be about how do we equip the professionals that are in schools that are having to deal with the students each and every day, as opposed to what do we do to students who act out? Because our mindset needs to be on restorative practices to equip students to be successful in the community so that they stay in the community or return to the community and impact the community in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your comments tonight. Just turn it off. We got another call coming in. Jeffrey Evans.
Thank y'all for letting me come. First of all, I'm gonna get some good points out. Y'all teachers, thank y'all. So, I've been in your shoes, well, a little bit. I'm retired from the Army. I was a department chair at Temple College. My wife says, hey, I want to be a teacher. I said, you're crazy. But hey, it was a passion. And the two, we're the preschool teachers. Well, Head Start teacher turned 89 yesterday. So, they will remember you. I don't know if it's gonna be a good thing or a bad thing. They will remember you. Y'all just keep instilling the discipline into them. These kids they're lacking discipline at home, and then it comes to the school. If you're the mean teacher, they may not like you, but they're gonna do what you tell them to do. You just gotta instill it into them. I promise you. Because it ain't just Bay City ISD, it's all of them. We're losing control. And we were losing control a long time ago. I had a sergeant major in Germany tell us he arrested 15 guys in front of the whole battalion. They got better reprimands for it. And he sat there and talked to us. He said, men, he said, if you want to know why them 15 guys messed up, he says, because society is messed up. And we're getting the product of society right now. So if y'all want to keep producing what's out there today, just keep doing what y'all are doing. It don't change. If y'all want to make a difference, please, ladies and gentlemen, I commend y'all for what y'all are doing. Y'all are a better person than I am. Because I'd already been to jail. I promise you. Y'all got to put your foot down. Please. If it ain't for y'all, do it for society. Please. That's it. Thank you.
Gina Smith.
Good evening. We thank you for letting us come and get things off our chest. I really wasn't prepared to speak. I could just agree with everything they've said. I'm a teacher, a pre-K teacher at Cherry. I have 7 students who graduated Bay City Independent School District. I have 2 still in the district. I do believe that discipline is very important. Like the man said, I think it's up to all of us to help instill this discipline in the children and help the parents also. I do think that Cherry needs, maybe every school needs a behavior plan and a behavior coach. I think that, as much as we try to be nurse and everything else we have to do throughout the day, including the 4 new curriculums we have to implement and everything else, I think we would benefit from having someone on our campus who is a specialist in the behavior field. Teachers are doing their best. You've heard the stress on teachers. And we are putting our students first. We're trying our very best. We have to be healthy in order to give them our best also. So again, I guess I had this thought, maybe it's time to put prayer back in school.
Michael Morris.
Okay, I'd like to say thank you also, and I am not from Bay City. I've only been teaching in Bay City here for 6 years. Everybody knows how first year is, how hard it is. And I never thought about quitting my first or my second year, because sometimes second year can be just as hard. This is the first time in my life I woken up and just said, no, I'm not going today, I'm not going to go. I have never taken vacation time. I've taken vacation time this year.
And I just think there is a disconnect between the community and the schools. I feel like everything is put on as teachers and no responsibilities are put on the parents. I understand that there is a lot going on with our parents. Our kids need help and our parents need help, but there has got to be some responsibility on them. We did not have the kids. You did. We're here to help you. It's still up to you. There's a problem with pre-K kids coming in that do not know how to go to the bathroom, they don't know how to wipe themselves, they don't know how to do common things that a 4 or 5-year-old should know how to do. There needs to be screenings done for pre-K. More importantly, I don't know what y'all been doing, but I know where I live, there's tons of elementary schools around. We pay our taxes so that we can get schools. Why we only have 3 elementary schools in this area, I don't know why. Having pre-K kids with 26-to-1 ratio, teacher-student ratio, is absolutely ridiculous. There should not be more than 15 kids in a pre-K and kinder classroom. It's because they are not getting the learning that they need. Because we are the foundation. And obviously, since there is not much put on the parents to do things that they need to do at home, we are happy to do it. So if that's going to be the case, if we're not going to put more responsibility on parents, then we need to take some of the curriculum out that we're teaching, because we are over teaching these students at this age. It is too much for them. And then we need to incorporate more coping and social emotional learning. So I really think our curriculum needs to be looked at as far as the pre-K and kindergartners. PBIS is great, but it doesn't mean that there should not be any consequences for anything. Okay, I cannot go to my work and punch someone and then be okay. I feel like we're teaching these students, and I'm not saying we have to be awful or mean or rude, but there is a way to talk to students. You did this, it wasn't the right thing to do, so this is the consequence. We have to start teaching them, because that is the real life. We are not preparing these kids for real life. We are preparing them that they can do what they want, say what they want, and it won't have any consequence. Parents are tired of us calling about their students, about these certain ones that are having behavioral problems. And honestly, they're blaming us that we're picking on their child, but honestly, we wouldn't call if we didn't care. And I know that's my situation. I care deeply about these students that are having some bad behavior, bad emotional disturbance and behavioral problems. And the thing is, we're not only having to call them, we have to call these other parents too, to let them know that, hey, your kid got punched in the throat today again, or your kid was choked also today. So I think if we lowered our numbers, that it would help a lot. But to reiterate what everybody has said, we need a behavior specialist. And I also believe that for us to be getting out at 3:45 and we have repeat offender parents coming and teaching at late, our time is not valued. And also, our kids are pretty much done by 2 o'clock, 2:30. Where I grew up, all elementary, pre-K through K, they got dismissed at 2:45. So I don't know, I feel like our days are too long for our kids. But most importantly, behavior specialists is what we need to help support.
Tara, how are you?
Hi. So I wasn't prepared tonight to speak at all, but I feel like I need to. I'm Tara. I grew up in Bay City. I bleed blue and gold. I now work for the district. This is my 10th year. I have 2 daughters here. I had never thought about having another profession until this year. I literally spent time researching what can I do with my degree. Could I pull my kids out of this district? Where would I take them? And it breaks my heart. And honestly, the only thing that keeps me here is my children, my team, and soccer. Honestly. Soccer program. So, what I'd like to say is just that I feel super supported when it comes to my administration team. That's me, my personal feeling. Anytime I have an issue, I feel like I can turn to them. But we're overloaded. I can't always get the support I need because they're dealing with 2,100 other things. They've had a fight break out, or they've had ABC. So we feel super frustrated when we can't teach our classroom when one child is disrupting the entire learning environment. I completely understand restorative practices. I love kids. I cannot give up on a kid, but at what expense? At what point do we say, enough is enough? Because I don't want my child in that classroom.
And I'm gonna tell you, as a parent, I have other parents call me because their child is not an honors child. They are an average student, they succeed in school, but they are terrified that their kid needs to be in honors. And why do they want their kids in honors? Because that's where the good kids are. And they're not honors kids. And I'm teaching honors, and I'm like, this kid has no business in my honors class, but I would never kick them out because I'm not gonna put them in that class with these 3 past kids who are going to literally ruin their education. But what about the 25 kids that are in that class with them? So we don't care about them. And so when parents call me and they're like, hey, Tara, where should I send my kid to school? What's my honest answer? Is your kid honors? Are they smart? Bay City's the place for them. Are they in special programs? Bay City's the place for them. If they're average, we're not your district. Because we don't protect those kids. Our average classroom is packed. My biggest class is my sped inclusion class. Why? Why does my honors class not have 28 kids? But my special class has 28 kids with 5 past kids. Like, I'm sorry, but I looked at my thing, I'm like, do they do this on purpose? Like, throw me 50 honors kids, I can handle them. Give me a room, they're perfect. They're amazing kids. But I've got 20 kids who are amazing regular kids with these 5 kids who are ruining the learning environment. So restorative practice, yes, at what expense are we doing that for our regular kids? Because as a parent, if my kids weren't in honors, I would not be in this district. I wouldn't, because they're not protected. The next thing I wanted to bring up is our substitutes. We can't get them because they're not protected. We had one of our most tenured substitutes yesterday tell a teacher that has one of the best discipline in her classroom, I'm not subbing for you again. I'm not subbing for 8th grade again because these kids are disrespectful. She told a kid, you're not in your assigned seat. He didn't care. She told a kid, put your cell phone up. He didn't care. She was disrespected. Why would she come back? So how can I take off work? Now I'm feeling more stressed, if that makes sense to you guys. It's just super frustrating. It's frustrating. When I take off, I honestly want to go to Mr. Hawkins and say, hey, can you get these kids out of my room? Because I don't want this substitute to deal with this. It's not fair to the substitutes. What do we do with kids who don't want to be in school? What are we doing with them? What are we doing with kids who are failing every class? We've called home and there's no parent support. I literally called a parent 4 days ago. Hey, I want to give you an opportunity to get a hold of your child. He's disrespectful. He's not. What do you want me to do? Those were her exact words to me. What do you want me to do? Well, I want you to parent your child. But that's 90% of my phone calls. So what as a district do we do? I don't have an answer. I need help. We need parent involvement. We need something for the kids who are ruining the classroom for everybody. On a positive note, PBIS has been implemented in our school recently. I do think it's great. The kids love it. But what about the kids who don't care? And I say, hey, I'm going to have to write you up. I don't want to write you up. I wrote up 2 kids last year. I didn't get to count mine today, but my coworker who usually writes up less than me was over 30 already. She usually writes up less than me. So why are we at that point? I give a student every opportunity. Hey, I don't want to write you up. I'm never going to write you up. Even if you cussed in my class, I'm going to give you a chance to fix yourself because I can't teach you if you're an ISS. But when I say, hey, I need you to step into your work, I need you to stop being disruptive, just write me up. I don't want to hear anyways. Because they know that there's no consequences. Write me up, nothing's going to happen. I'm going to be put in ISS. It's actually fun. I'm going to sit on YouTube. Because I have Go Guardian, and guess what I'm seeing when they're in ISS? They're on YouTube. So, again, restorative practice is awesome. No child left behind. We love these kids, but at what expense? Are we doing this for our regular students?
Thank you all for your comments. That was very valuable. We're gonna get a little bit of business out of the way first. We've got a presentation on the teen homes, elementary wing, and then we're gonna get into an open discussion on the student code of conduct, which includes all the issues that we've talked about in discipline inside of that conversation as well. So, Rick?
Hello, good evening.
I'm sure this is not an hour long, right? Everybody wants
I'll be fine.
to take as long as you need. This is important as well.
Okay, I'm giving some information, kind of an update on teen homes wing in the sense that the third grade wing was that, we're gonna need to reconstruct a new wing in that same floor plan, the same footprint. And, the first thing that our lawyer, Wash Diagonal, said on the list is to choose an architect for that project. If we use Clay Coleman Associates, which is the architect we use for the community schools and the baseball field and also the stadium, then we would need to amend our contract with them to add the reconstruction of that wing and teeny homes. Also, we're, our financial advisor, bond is not required to do this work. We propose to finance it with maintenance tax notes. And also, in the qualification there is that you build on the same spot. And just as long as the original square footage isn't exceeded, in the sense that by now there's 14 classrooms located there. So 14 or less square footage wise, you can go in the same spot. And also, if we decide to, which, you know, me personally, I think it's a good idea to go with Clay Coleman Associates because they actually designed the other part of the campus. We would go out for RFQ or request for qualification, which that's also a possibility to choose a different architect than the one we already have. And Rita, I've given you this information previously, but I want to bring this to your attention again. The cost estimate of reconstruction, this is an estimate. If the scenario one would be for 6 classrooms there, would cost about $1.8 million, and the payment per year would be approximately $207,000. 8 classrooms would be $2,630,000 for 10 years for $297,000. And if we went with a size that we have currently, 11 to 14 classrooms, we do $4.9 million. But on that particular one, we would need finance for 15 years. And the interest rate on all these, right now, the market interest rate is around 2%. And on the 11 to 14 classroom would be approximate payment $388,000. So, let me give you that information and any discussion.
When will this be up for actual vote? Are we talking November next week or?
It depends on what the board wants to do. We can put it on the agenda for the next board meeting. You have to tell us how you're comfortable, right? Move forward with it, and then how you want to move forward.
Right.
Yes, that's correct.
I think another question that I have in looking with 6 to 14 classrooms. I know when this was first brought to our attention back, I don't know, August, I guess, maybe it was. We had a discussion with what were all of those 14 classrooms used as at this moment? And are we foreseeing that we need to go 14 or can we go 8? What does it look like at this point? Has that changed from that conversation?
I don't think it's changed in the conversation. It would just be a decision from.
Yeah, I don't either. With the demographic study that we actually had, we didn't use that. What I would ask, if the principal would like to, just tell us how many of those rooms weren't being used on third grade wing.
When we had to reconfigure, we had 9 open rooms, and not
On that
open.
wing?
And no, in that wing, I had 1 open room. We used it for the vault, and the others were classrooms in our RTI classroom. And then we did have classrooms that were open, but they were for our special education, they were our science labs, they were utilized for educational reasons and academic
So
reasons.
just for, like, just regular classrooms, not the special, not special education, how many were open on that wing, on the existing third grade wing?
On that third grade wing one, we had the vault in there for our PBIS points.
And when designing, I know in other wings, there are science labs, so is that the thought that is best for third grade as well, as to put an actual science lab?
Absolutely.
And to use that space?
Yeah, I mean, we have to, that's what, our teachers have to spend a certain percentage of their time in science labs, and they need access to that, they need to have those supplies in there. I think it's truly important.
So my recommendation to the board, and I'll give this to you again next week, is that we do go with, playgrounds. I like the design of the building. However, I do believe we would go with another construction, company, because I'm not satisfied with how the building has been, the buildings have been constructed. That's the board's decision.
Is 8 sufficient, or does it need to be 11?
Well, so if you think about it, we have, in third grade, we have 12 classrooms of teachers, and so, and I've tried to pick Rick's brain about moving the wing to be cohesive with our other wings, and he told me the reasonings why it has to stay where it's at, because we like the cohesiveness of everybody there. But if you put 8 classes, just 8 rooms, then we would have to have, like, third grade, there'd be 6 classes here so then we could have the science room, and then some more would be in the other wing. It wouldn't give us that cohesiveness that you tend to see in a school. So there's options either way.
Yeah.
We just might have to get kind of, it could be our specials wing, and that's where we have all of our science labs and our art, our music, those classrooms, or it would just be just some discussions with the teachers on what that could look like.
I think we've cut too many corners as it is. If
Yeah.
we need 12, then let's do 12.
Well, and I think travel time, if we're saying science labs in one ring, I mean, you've wasted a lot of educational time
You're right.
to travel from your classroom on the other side of the school to get to the lab in the opposite side.
Scenario 3, that's 14.
Well, it's between 11 and 14.
We can get 14 for that, right? We can get 14. Because we built Lily Roberts, I think Ms. Wendell was saying she's already struggling for space over there, so why are we building space where we're already at a limit? Like, we need to look a little bit farther than just this year.
I agree. Any other questions? Comments?
Okay. Thank you very much.
So we'll have that on our agenda next week, our regular board meeting. Okay, item 4, open session. Discuss issues pertaining to student code of conduct and student discipline matters and consider future action regarding the same. And so first, I'd just like to open and say, I had no idea what to expect when we put this item on the agenda. Obviously, the board, in their own individual circumstances, see the same things with our own children. And even just hearing things through the community and talking to the teachers. So, didn't know what to expect, but this is what I hoped for. I hope for parents to be here. I hope for teachers to be here, and paraprofessionals and administrators. I hope not just to hear about the issue, but what you think we need to do to actually fix it and solve it. And that's the type of proactive meeting that I think we were all looking forward to having, a partnership and solution, right? So, and now I've got a closed session item on here in case we need to discuss a specific case. So nobody's going to say, the coloring teacher in the 13th grade. We don't want to identify any teacher or any situation in a public meeting. Okay? So we have a closed session for that, and we'll use closed session as many times as we need to, and we'll be back, but I don't anticipate us spending a lot of time back there. We have an attorney here with us tonight who can advise us as to the legality of doing certain things and issues around disciplining certain students, right? We heard pass a lot tonight, but there's a lot behind that. So, and then I'll just I'll just allow Dr. Scott to open it up. I know you've taken some notes there, and if you guys have a presentation or anything, then we'll just open up the discussion to the board after that.
All right, so Lisa's actually going to facilitate the conversation with a PowerPoint, but I want to start by saying to, first of all, to the board, thank you for this opportunity to have the teachers in this environment and for them to be able to speak freely. I know I've had conversations with several of you around discipline on the board. I've met with teachers as well around this topic. We have to do better. And I will tell you, we'll start with me. We're not in a place where we're going to say, well, it's this person's fault. It's that person's fault. We just have to do things a little differently. I hear you. Some of you I've had one-on-one with, and I know that you're phenomenal teachers. I know that. And I've seen you in your environment, and you're struggling with some of the behaviors. To the president's point, we're going to do all that we actually can within the law to make some changes. I don't want to steal the thunder because it's a part of the presentation, but one of my recommendations will be to the board is that we have behavior interventionists or behavior specialists on each of our campuses. What we're going to do is, what we're going to do is have to really and truly define that, and so it's meaningful for us. I heard a lot of the restorative practices. I heard a lot of the social and emotional supports. Well, we want someone who's actually going to be able not only meet the kid where he or she is in crisis, but then have the skills and the background and the abilities to actually intervene and to address the concerns that they have and help them be better and understand what school behaviors look like. The other thing that was actually mentioned, and we hear this, and it's the reality, is that how do we actually support at home? We're going to have some wraparound service. And again, I'm repeating myself because I've had this conversation with board members. A lot of the behaviors that we're actually seeing, they're not being caused at the school. They're just taking place at the school. It's something that's happening outside of the school building, some of them. We're going to do our very best again to put in supports to respond to the behaviors, but responding to the behaviors won't be the end all be all. We have to put some systems in place to where we're being proactive. And yes, we have consequences. And let me be very clear. I've heard so many times that the higher ups, and I put the quotation around myself because I believe you're probably talking about me. I've never said, do not suspend a kid. I've never said do not send a kid to EAP just because we have a population of students that have they're disproportionately suspended or it's showing up on a report. If you don't do anything about it, then how are we actually going to fix the problem? So let me be very clear. And someone said, and this is one of my statements that I've made since I've been in education 25 years, is that I'm not willing to sacrifice the education of 21. It's not okay. It's not okay for us to say we're going to tell our marshal to tear up the room and the other 21 kids and their parents that just have to deal with it. That's not okay. I don't support that. I don't condone it, and I definitely don't encourage it. However, as a school system, we have to respond to the needs of our kids and what those needs are and how they're created. Maybe for several different factors. With the behavior intervention specialists, we can actually work with kids who may not necessarily qualify for special programs. Because at this point, those are the kids we're actually working with. If you're not identified there, then we just continue to go through the consequences. When in fact, a behavior person can actually work with kids with just generated populations of students who need a better understanding of what school behavior looks like will be beneficial for us as well. Since I'm here, at least I'm able to go on with the other things that I was going to share. So the model of leadership that we actually have from Central in our school district is called, we're decentralized, which means that Central administration gives you all of the tools at the school level to do what you need to do for your kids, with, quite honestly, with very little correction. And what we're going to shift to, we're not going to shift all the way over to centralized, but we are going to shift to a tiered model to to where if things are going well, then there's going to be less influence or less coaching from central administration. If they're not, then we need to be more involved and we need to be more hands-on in the process. We can't just say things are going well over here. You're doing fine. Things are not going as well over here. You just figure it out. Well, and again, I'm starting with me. That's not okay. And if I have the skills, and I do, definitely at the elementary level, middle school level, junior high school level, to help with some of the behavior concerns that you actually have, then shame on me if I'm not directly involved in helping with those problems or those opportunities. Let me say that. We talked about the behavior specialists. We have to come back and look at the implementation piece. And this is not a gotcha. What I've actually heard over the last few weeks is that we have this new model of addressing behaviors, and we want to implement the model so well, we're not making adjustments away from it when it's not working. I've heard that more than once. I know it says, well, when you get to level 3, that's when you actually need to do whatever it is you need to do. But if your behavior rises to that level, at level 2, we have to have some professional judgment and start making some different moves. I heard the point about data collection. Hey, listen, I understand. We can collect data on Marshall, well, if I may, on James, who has skipped class, who has skipped the line 2 or 3 times, and we're redirecting him, versus collecting data for Marshall, who is really and truly displaying some behaviors that are non-typical for someone of that age. You have to handle the situation differently no matter what the program actually says. And I'm giving you all the authority and the autonomy to actually make those adjustments. And if in fact you're pushing towards to make those adjustments and you're not getting what you need, let us know. The position that you actually need, and again, I'm looking at some of you because I've had this conversation with you. Tell us what you need. We're not holding positions here. No, we don't have just an unlimited amount of money. But the board has never said no. We've asked for something. They have not. And I will not say no to you when you need something. Now, again, we did the school scheduling thing where we're looking at positions. But if that's not working, just say it's not working. And then we'll come back and we start allocating the additional resources that you actually need. But that's with the intent of you saying, if you give me this, I'm going to be okay to do the things I need to do in my instructional environment. We're here to help. We're absolutely here to help. And you come back once again, and I'll turn this over to Lisa. We cannot let a half a percentage of students in this school district make it appear as though the school district itself is just out of control. And the individual conversation I've had with many of you teachers is that you're not saying it's the majority of our kids, but the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, it makes it appear as though the school is out of control, and that's what we have to get a handle on. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. So just for a frame of reference, this PowerPoint was put together based on questions that were forwarded by board members. So some of this for teachers and for staff members, some of this may be very familiar to you and review. I'm not trying at all to be demeaning, but we just formatted this based on the questions we got from board members. And I think along the way we'll address some of the concerns that you brought up tonight, very, very valid concerns. So one of the questions that was brought up was discipline trends. What does our discipline look like for the last, actually the question was asked for 5 years, but I ran that back even further because being an employee here for 26 years, I wanted to show exactly what that looked like, even when we had a JJ AEP, because that was one of the questions brought up. So what you're going to see, look at this. This is our discipline trend reason code since 2009, 2010. And you can see on the first column there are the discipline actionary reasons. So you can see whether it was permanent removal of a teacher, by a teacher from class, conduct punishable as a felony, possessed, sold, was under the influence of marijuana, abuse of volatile chemicals. All the way down, you'll see the ones
probably the most prevalent. Oops, sorry. If you look at number 21, violation of student code of conduct. That's usually just your run-of-the-mill disruption of class, disrespect, something that does not fall to the more serious level, okay, of physical aggression or severe verbal aggression. So if you look at that for the first year, which was 09-010, we were at 4,321 incidences of that across our district. And then you can see the trend over the last years. Now, what you're seeing in the last column, 389, please realize that is only reflective of the first 6 weeks when this data was run. Yeah, that is this year thus far for the first 6 weeks.
So Lisa, how does this show up? I know the answer.
This shows up when a teacher writes a discipline referral and they write exactly what happened. Then when that goes into the campus administrator codes that as a code that describes that behavior. And then choose 21, or if it's a fight, you'll see down here it's 41 that's a Texas coding system. Okay, so the administrator chooses that code that best matches the behavior of the student and where that falls.
All right, so, and I may jump in here.
Sure,
I
please
know
do.
we have parents in the crowd, but I'm probably speaking more to the teachers. Please document the behaviors on each referral so they can actually go into the system so we can keep a record of it. Keeping the numbers down, if that's being encouraged, I don't encourage it. We want accurate data. And if you have 35 times you need to send a student to the office, write a referral 35 times. I don't know where it was. We're going to look at the referral process and how we actually keep up and document the referral to make sure that they're accurate. But please don't believe that if you're referring kids for legitimate reasons that someone's going to look around and say, well, why does she have 35 referrals? Well, we're going to expect that kid has done something 35 times to where it should have been referred. And it's not, we're not looking at I got you, so you can actually limit the number of referrals that you have. We need accurate data as we continue to put systems and resolution in place to continue to support you all. And I'm just speaking about some things that I've just heard, and some things that I've read.
Absolutely, I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Scott. It's a workshop situation. And I want to be clear that when these referrals are written, this also reflects whether the student went out to an out-of-class placement via ISS, OSS, DAP, that's an option. But also, these referrals also reflect if it was after-school detention, or before-school detention, or lunch detention, or counseling, or parent conference, whatever that is. That, just like Dr. Scott said, that is an important record so that if I pull up Marshall Scott and I'm an AP, but then another AP is dealing with him another day, that AP can see Lisa Moya AP has dealt with that student 30 times this year. So then those consequences are going to be progressive.
Okay, so I'm looking at line. On line 27.
Yes, ma'am.
And I see 0 for the 6 weeks.
Thus far, that is what is coded in the system for the first 6 weeks of this year. Aggravated, which one are you on, ma'am? Assault against employee? Yes, ma'am, that's what our system is showing.
This point, just a reminder that assault can only be determined by the police department.
I'm sorry?
A police department is
Yes.
the only people that.
It does have to meet the criteria in the law for assault.
So is it reported? If any type of assault is happening, whether that be hitting, kicking, pulling a hair, slapping,
So that
is it
that is-
automatically, who reports that to know,
So
is it?
the discipline referral is written, the campus administrator takes that discipline report, and then
Right.
if it rises to the level of what they believe the definition is, they consult with their campus officer. to see if it rises to the level of the law.
So, no, so it's all an interpretation of if that person sitting at that desk, the AP principal, whoever received that referral, if that child slapping somebody, if them doing whatever their action is, if they don't think it's assault, it's not assault.
They need to consult with their campus officer to make that determination
So,
with the letter of the law.
Dr. Scott, question, I guess that is for you in this conversation. If someone is being hit, kicked, punched, choked, whatever that looks like, should that not, I don't know who's sitting behind the desk, it doesn't matter, but should that not be consulted with the police officer every time to let that officer make that judgment? Isn't that why we have officers on campus?
That's not the reason why they're.
Right, that's not the reason, but
then you're getting police officers involved in administrative decisions at that point. So that, it's really a slippery slope for people to walk.
right.
When you start taking the decision about what the action is away from the administrative piece, from the administrators, unless it's something that just automatically triggers to say this is criminal. So if that's the direction in which the board wants to go, that would just be my one against it. Now you're taking decision making from the principal, so you're saying whatever the police says.
And there's a very specific definition in law, in
Yes.
chapter 37, that outlines assault with the intent, where the investigation needs to be done by the campus administrator regarding what they believe the intent, and also the level of bodily harm, things like that.
Then you're looking at the law, you're looking at the age as well. The age of the student, you talk about the intent. So is there the definitive advantage that maybe you want to take to the attorney? But that's what I know.
So if it's a kick, a punch, a hair pull or something, and it's not coded as any of the assaults, is it just coded under that 1,000, 2,000, is it just lumped into that?
Violation of student code of conduct, or it's on the, because again, it could be 59, serious misbehavior, well, no, that's all it's spelled, I'm sorry.
It just,
It goes into violation of student code of conduct.
it just doesn't seem very helpful to lump in a student punching a teacher with a student who broke a pencil or lost a shit bag.
Now, I will say this, let me further define, these are state peace codes that you see here. Within, for example, the big category, violation of student code of conduct, we can build in local codes that further define that. You know, for example, one of the local codes built in is dress code violation. So if we further break that down into local codes, we can pull some of that data. I can't quote the local codes off the top of my head for you, but I could research that further. Those local codes, when this is reported to the state, it all goes in as 21. They want to know how many ones. For our local data disaggregation, we can break it down further to see what falls within that 21. And the campus principals can probably quote the codes better than I can, because it's been about 11 years since I've used them all.
Maybe share some information?
Sure, please do.
Okay, that's not the only assault code. There are more than one assault code. That's like a felony assault code.
So 29 is?
Yes, whichever the 29.
Right, 29.
There are assault codes that are coded under 21 that don't rise to the level of a criminal offense.
Which that would be the local code.
That would be the local code. So like when we're coding a 21, it's not just a blanket 21. We do 21 / our local code. So we can get a breakdown on 21 as to what's either a dress code violation, tardies, assault, harassment, whatever it happens to be that doesn't rise to that definition of a felony, but still is considered would be an assault.
So those are recognized?
Yes.
And they're not just?
It's just not coded as a violation. There is that definition, that breakdown of 21.
that data easily accessible? I mean, can we see that?
Yes,
Not
I will
right now
pull
here,
that.
but, okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't have that prepared, but I can pull that for y'all. Absolutely.
So what I see from this is something I keep on bringing up, and I keep on being told I'm wrong. But to me, it looks like for the past 10 years, we've been telling PE teachers to not write people up. Because the kids aren't getting better over the past 10 years. So whenever we say, hey, like, y'all just write up everybody, if the administration, if whoever that referral goes to is not doing jack squat with that write-up, they're not gonna write them up, because it takes time out of their day, it's another form for them to fill out, they're not gonna do it. So until we start actually taking the referrals and saying, I'm gonna do something with this, I'm gonna actually help you with this child, get some support needed, then the whole thing is pointless.
Amen.
Mr. West, the difference in being in the classroom and taking all of that time to fill out a discipline report is not as easy as you think it is. If you would write up a discipline report for every little incident that you want to see, takes a lot of time. So now, if it's something minor, then no, we are not going to take that time just so that you can have an I got you. But if it's something major, I get you.
We've
So
had
you're not
multiple
going to
teachers come up
okay,
and say,
multiple.
I've asked for help and I didn't get it.
Okay, multiple. If it's major and if it's something, I'm quite sure that teacher is going to give you that. But most teachers are not going to do that all the time. So I see what they see on here. If it's that important, I think you're going to get what you, they're going to fill out that stuff. I really do. And
I guess we'll just.
And I will say,
I trust him. I trust him to do it.
Right, no,
so also to address your concern, Mr. West, one of the things that each campus team developed last year was a matrix of behaviors. What are classroom behaviors? I guess what you would consider the more minor behaviors. And what are the straight to office referrals behaviors?
Right.
So you'll see that in the presentation in a minute. So maybe that will address some of your questions about that. But if it doesn't, please bring it up again, and we can have some of the campuses respond to that.
Some teachers have come to me directly and said, I've just stopped writing people up. They go down to the office, they're there for 5 minutes, and they come back. There's no consequences.
You got it.
So why would you tell them to fill out a form and take 20 minutes out to fill a form out and go through the process?
You're right.
Well, I also think it aids into what does ISS look like? What does DAP look like?
Yeah.
Are those pull out your phone and get on YouTube? Because if that's what it is, then that's a reward for a kid.
Absolutely.
Like they want to leave a classroom to go do that. Is it, oh, they're being disruptive, I'm trying to get my work done because I'm not an ISS teacher. I'm going to give them something to do so I can get my stuff done. That's a reward. And I've had people say that that's what they do. And that to me, like then why are teachers are wasting their time and their energy when they should be teaching, but they're writing up for ISS and kids, but then they're going to ISS and it's fun and games.
And if
so
that's the case, then that's something we need to.
So that's, I think that's something that we'll talk about, but I think it's all layered in of what are the expectations? And if our expectations that a child is going to ISS for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever reason, then they need to be in there and it needs to be a serious, I'm in here and I'm not gonna play around type of offense. And I will write sentences. I don't care. I still have my children write sentences and there's nothing wrong with it. And why can't they do that type of stuff? I don't know.
So I do agree with both of you that the issue is multi-layered. One of the things I think you heard Dr. Scott said is that from this level, no one has ever said, do not write up, do not do discipline referrals, but that may be happening, and maybe we need to look at why is that happening.
Right.
Absolutely.
And no one may be saying it from the top, like I've spoken with Dr. Scott of do not write up. But if they're writing up and being sent to the office and come back 5 minutes later, then there's no point in writing up.
Yeah.
That's an unspoken.
So that's where one, I don't know if I got to it, but the monitoring and assessing the implementation process. So what actually happens once the teachers actually write the referral? What's the response? And even in the process of having conversation with this at your faculty meetings or not, you take 6 weeks worth of referrals. And you look at those and say, well, how do you actually respond to this assistant principal or principal? Hey, here's some opportunity that you actually missed. I sent Marshall out because this was his 4th time using profanity in my classroom, and yet still he was allowed to come right back because you were busy doing something else. I'm just making stuff up. That's not okay. We have to come back and figure out how do we better organize our day so therefore we don't have these referrals. That's one thing. That's just responding to the actual write-up. There are other modalities in which you can actually help the teachers monitor and address behavior just by proximity, which for the principals you all know, I'm pushing you to get into the classroom. So therefore, if I see you more often, Mr. Principal, then I'm more likely not to put up as much, or maybe even stop cutting up because I never know when you're going to come out and get me. So there are different ways to actually help, but it's almost the chicken and the egg type. What's the cause and effect? The bottom line is we need to look at the whole system and not stop doing it because you're frustrated. And I get it. Let's look at where the gaps are for us to improve the entire model that we're actually using right now. Because we will need the positive pieces. But let me say this, if the positive piece is not working, then if you've been a teacher probably more than 2 months, then you know some of the other directive pieces to actually go through. And I don't know this to be true, but I've heard it more than once. The discipline management system is to help address the behaviors that are in your classroom. If in fact you know how to respond to the kids in your classroom, then do that. Don't just implement the model as it's written, and now your kids are not behaving when you can flip to whomever you may be. This teacher, I know how to lead my class. That's where we want you to be. I'm not concerned about, let me take that back. We want the programs to work and be implemented with fidelity, but not to a fault to where they're not working for you and your kids. That's when you have to have the flexibility within your classroom and say, hey, listen, Mr. Superintendent, I know you think you know everything about this model, but I haven't sent a kid out of my classroom this year because I'm addressing what happens here. I don't care if you don't use the model. Honestly, I don't. The only thing I want you to be able to do is have control of your classroom and provide quality instruction for your kids. Now, I know there's some people who are in here who are helping us with the model. We can come and talk offline about my beliefs about how we actually get kids to do things they need to do, and I'm old school as well. I get it. But we have to have a balance of being encouraging and the positive pieces and the consequences. Because one way it's not going to work with all of our kids.
Do you have other questions about this chart before I go to the action chart? So you can see what actions the principals are taking?
So Lisa, the data for this year, what's the date on it? Like, I mean, when was this populated?
This was populated, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go back and look at that.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it was populated, I believe only the first 6 weeks was in there, or did Laura do another update? We do a discipline upload at the end of each 6 weeks. So for sure it represents that, but I would have to ask our teams to learn if she uploaded in the middle of the 6 weeks before we get there.
So right now, we're on pace to 389, we're on pace for like 2,400.
I'm so sorry.
Right now, we're on pace for like 2,400.
What number are you looking at? Yes. Yes, sir. At least, yeah. And I will tell you, we see a trend, which is, I think the trend across the state, is that usually in the spring it picks up a little bit also, so.
So I think that's 400 with people not writing as much as there is.
Well, 2 years of COVID, and the kids are home, and
That's
can't
very
write shit up as at home. So
Yeah,
these
these 2 years are anomalies, probably, yes.
So we're pretty much on pace where we were before.
Yeah. Very good, that's very good.
You let parents write for
Any other questions before I go to the next chart? Okay, what you'll see in our next chart are action codes since 2009, 2010. Those listed in the first column. So, for example, expulsion without placement in another place, expulsion to JJAEP. You'll see that we had JJAEP until 2011-12. And then that's why you see the zeros the rest of the line. At that time, the county disbanded JJAEP. Out of school suspension, in school suspension.
So we probably want to get to the slide where I'm supposed to present all of this, because this is perfect.
Yeah.
So right now, the Van Lake ISD superintendent and I are working with the local judge to see if we can get the JJAEP program back up and running in Madison County. I know that we're going to be a part of the co-op if it's approved. Not sure about Ty Haven or the other districts, but John O'Brien and I have been talking about this for about a month or so. And the district judge seems to be on board. We just have to come back and build a model that we can actually use. So we have that in the works.
This isn't like we're waiting to see if Van Vleck will join in. This is we're gonna do this anyways, and if they're gonna join in, then great.
Yeah, we're gonna build a co-op model, so it's a shared services, so it doesn't cost it.
Right, I was making sure if Van Vleck says, oh, I don't know if this is right for us to max out, that doesn't mean we're backing out, right?
No, we're not backing out. Well, I mean, at this point, you go.
What was the sorry, what was the question?
What's the question? Why are we bringing it back? I mean, at this point, you go from DAEP, and then the next level is expulsion. This, in fact, gives us an opportunity to put in more restrictive measures before we actually kick kids out to the street. And then, to your point, it's a need for both districts. You guys have been talking about it. And, yeah, I mean, if the board wants to fund that solely from us, then by all means, we'll still move forward with it.
And there are a lot of federal grants, different types of grants to help pay for that program.
So if you look at code 1 here, expulsion without placement, you'll see that when JJAEP went away, that's what we had at that was our highest level of consequence, was expulsion without placement. But what that means is those students are out for a calendar year. And we hope and pray, that they don't drop out at that point. Whereas when we had expulsion to JJAEP, they were expelled to that setting. Or court order, if it was something that involved the court system.
Dr. Scott, can you give a quick, just what JJAEP is?
It's the juvenile alternative education program. Most people would know this, probably in Texas, as like a boot camp. Where they're receiving their instruction as they would in the public school setting, but then there are also other interventions that are put in place through a collaborative effort with the local justice system. It's what most people know as a boot camp.
So just some of the numbers that you'll see there: 05, out of school suspension; 06 is in school suspension. Those are at least for a full day. And then you'll see placement in an off-campus DAP, on or off campus, I'm sorry. Continuation of district's DAP placement from the prior year. Then you'll also see code 25 and 26, which are partial days. So it is possible when a student receives that consequence, if something happens in the morning, they receive a partial day for the rest of the day and then a full day or whatever it might be. So that, I
just wanted to explain that to board members, why there are partial days in there. Any questions about that data that I've made comments?
No, but that expulsion numbers are, if you think about COVID being in 20 and part of 21, and that number going to 5 and 9 and already 2 this year, 1/6 of the way through, it's time for something. JJ, the intervene in that.
If there aren't any more questions, we'll go to the next part. So the question was raised by a board member, does discipline affect our school district rating in any way? So technically, if you look at the taper report, there is not a rating for how many students are disciplined, how many out of placements, absolutely not. Not as a specific indicator. But does behavior affect and discipline affect our academic performance? I mean, that's a major concern of our teachers, absolutely. Because those frequent flyers that are not responding to all of the restorative practices, the positive practices that they talk about that are working for some of our students, then of course it does affect our academic performance because they can't address the needs of the rest of the students in the classroom. So in an inadvertent way, it does affect our accountability. It also, there's something in the state of Texas called results-driven accountability system. This is not our A through F system. This is separate. And what that system looks at is special populations. So it looks at special education population, bilingual, Title I, which all of our campuses are Title I population. And it also looks at, I'm missing one, CTE, students who are enrolled in CTE. And it looks at how are those special populations doing as far as academic performance, and then also as far as discipline. One of the things that happened that we've had 3 years in a row is that we've had disproportionality in our special education discipline. So if we have, of our special ed students, we have about 500 to 600 in our district. Is that 400, I'm sorry, 400. We have about 400 in our district. They look at those 400 students and they look at the proportion of them, how many are African American. Right now, about 15% of our total student population is African American. How many of our special ed population are African American? Is it proportionate to the overall population? Same thing with Hispanic, same thing with white, same thing with economically disadvantaged. Then it also looks at the out of school placements for disciplinary incidences. So it looks at how many of those students are likely went to DAP. Was it proportional to your total population? So we were out of proportion for 3 years in a row. So that did mean that we had some plans that we had to write and some things that we had to put into place, which started actually last year and started part of our MTSS training. We went into special education intervention. You'll see on the front of our taper, it always says special education in need of intervention. That's why. We did have to write a strategic support plan. That's why we gathered in the spring of, I'm getting messed up with my dates, 2020. Thank you, Angela. We convened a district-wide MTSS team, MTS being multi-tiered systems of support for behavior. It was made up of teachers, counselors, some of them past teachers, some of them gen ed teachers, and then some administrators. And together, they came together, disaggregated some data on our discipline, and they looked at, we don't have just disproportionality in our special ed population, we have it in our gen ed population also. So that's how we wrote the plan, is to address all areas of discipline, whether it's regular education or special education. Part of that plan required that we use 15% of our special education grant, which is our IDEA grant, to fund this initiative, okay? And then every year we're measured on the progress that we make. That's where we started the CHAMPS initiative. Actually, that was one of the strategic goals that the board set forth with stakeholders in our strategic plan, is that we had a district-wide classroom management system. And they looked at several and CHAMPS was what they chose at that time. You can see here, board members, I put in a link that shows you, if you go into each of these folders, this will show you all of the different trainings, materials, resources that have been provided by Region 13 for our MTSS teams. And by the way, I haven't introduced her, but this is Angela Eisenberg from Region 13.
Hi.
She just happens to be in district this whole week doing campus visits and implementation support, so we invited her to the board meeting. So if this will stay up, this is free for you to go in and look at the different things that the campuses have done and the supports that have been provided. Does that answer your question about accountability that all of you had? Okay. I'm so sorry, Jessica. I keep.
Just one.
Yes.
Can you just also email the links in the PowerPoint that work?
Linda did email it to everyone.
I'm so sorry.
She did.
Sorry, I'm just putting off nights, so.
And I think it's in board book, it never works, but
Yeah.
the link should be open to anyone who has the link.
Yeah,
It just has to be.
she emailed it, I think, the following day.
So the question was raised and sent to Dr. Scott, what is the CHAMPS program, how is the program administered, and by whom, and are there specific goals and metrics? So CHAMPS, if you're in education, you've probably heard of Safe and Civil Schools, Randy Sprigg. It's probably nationally known as a behavior, they provide all types of behavior support and behavior training. Randy Sprigg is actually internationally known. So CHAMPS is part of Safe and Civil Schools, and it stands for Class-Wide Positive Behavior Support. And it really focuses, whether you call it CHAMPS or whether you call it Harry Wong's First Days of School, the concepts are the same. It focuses on routines and procedures. What are the class expectations? What are the school expectations? And just the structure of classroom management. And then when asked about the metrics, one of the things that Angela Eisenberg did with us in our first year of implementation, we trained during that summer, and then I will tell you, we had to train via Zoom, so that's not always our favorite way to train, but we were still in the middle of COVID. But she has done implementation and coaching visits as she comes along. And one of the things she did a beginning of the year metrics and an end of the year metrics for each campus. And so as you click on these links, school board members, you can see the charts of the metrics that were measured. For example, she interviewed staff, can they name all the school-wide expectations? And by the way, those expectations were developed by the campus MTSS teams. She measured that in the fall, in the spring, and then the administrator assessment of how they thought their campus would respond. And you can see there's quite a lengthy beginning and end of year data here.
So a quick question, if I may. As I was going through all of these links, I noticed that as I clicked, I don't know if you can see it, but there are some that say 9 responses, some that say 11 responses. Is that the total number of people that responded to that question?
This is just a sampling. This is not a full campus survey. Is that correct,
Yes.
Angela? You just do a time sample.
So those were actual interviews that I pulled this teacher aside while I was on campus and I interviewed the questions. So I don't know who I interviewed. The administrators don't know who I interviewed. It's completely anonymous from that standpoint. So it is at a minimum of 10 teachers, I think was my ultimate goal. Sometimes I didn't get the full 10 because I didn't want to pull them out of academic lesson. So a minimum of 20 students was my goal. So it was a sampling of the student population. And I tried to be as diverse as possible of like at junior high, not asking all 6th graders, but trying to make sure that I took a sampling across the board.
Okay. Is this ever given to all staff on campuses at the beginning of the year?
It hasn't yet.
Well, is that something that part of the program is? I mean, when I was going through this data, there were some very alarming numbers for specific questions on every single school. The same question was scored, was very low for people agreeing. For instance, one of the questions is, Does staff feel there are fair and equitable consequences to address unwanted behavior for all students? I mean, at one campus, there were 20% that agreed with that statement. And so I think if we're doing just a sampling of 10 to 9, between 9 and 16 were kind of the numbers that I saw, and that's where we landed. Like, do we think that this is not working? Something is missing somewhere. So how do we get the data from everybody and not just a dip in the water?
I think you'll see one of Dr. Scott's recommendations is that we do a staff-wide, school-wide survey this year. It can look similar to this if that's what the board wants to look at. Again, this was just a random sampling for them to measure their progress, to inform their progress. And what has happened every year, their campus, the first year, their campus MTSS team developed an implementation plan. Angela supported several times during the year or coached according to what the team felt they needed on that campus. And then at the end of the year did this random sampling. Based on that, then she came back and worked with them again 2 days in the summer, last summer, and they developed their year 2 implementation plan. So that's the data that drove this. But if you're wanting something that measures the whole school, we can do that.
Well, I think it's important because we're just doing a dipstick. So if we're in a classroom of 25 kids and we're only testing 2 kids on their reading level and saying, oh, we did a great job, I'm a great teacher, pat on the back, they know how to read. But in reality, we just did a dip. And so if we're really wanting to know what the health and if this program is truly working with fidelity, then I think it needs to be across the board. We need to have a beginning and across the board and see was there growth, and if there's not growth, then why is the question that we need to start asking.
Ms. White, can I just quickly? So please note, I just want to make sure that we all know, this data was collected for the MTSS teams so that they could have a different piece of data to look at other than it was one component of their data. They should have been looking at their referral data, incident data, as well as this walkthrough data. So it wasn't meant to be the whole crux of everything. They should have been looking at all of the data they've been collecting. So I just want to make sure that we're really clear that this was just one component of data. And they could definitely survey their campus, the whole, I mean, that we could do parent survey, student survey, staff survey, we could go across the board. It's just, you know, some of the logistics, like of course at Cherry, of surveying, you know, kids, you know, so you just have to kind of look at the logistic kind of pieces of it. But if that's something that the board wants, as well as the MTSS campus teams, then that would be great data.
And that, I guess, is part of the question, is would that be valuable as MTSS teams and as your leads on your campus, and for Dr. Scott creating positions that we're talking about of behavior specialists? I think this goes right into that of this is where we're going to start. Like, is it valuable to know what everybody on the campus is thinking, and is it working in everybody's classroom?
I think you have data here to say that it may be working in some classrooms and may not be in others. What the root cause of that, I think, is where the MTSS team has to dig down and look at what the root cause of that is. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Also, you'll see here.
Before you go on.
I'm sorry.
To the ladies that are standing, there's at least 2 chairs on this side of the room and 2 chairs on this side of the room. If y'all want to come in and have a seat.
4 chairs, they said.
4 chairs. And then if the ladies don't want to sit, the gentleman. I just wanted to.
So the other sampling I wanted to give the board and again, the MTSS campus teams have seen this. This is the implementation plans that they drafted for this year. Again, this is their initial draft. They're continually revisiting these. So you will see some of them have markouts and different things. It's a living document that they meet on at least once every 6 weeks to discuss. Any questions? Okay, classroom contracts. One of the questions was raised, do teachers establish a contract with their students and parents
at the start of the year, and I asked principals to add some to this. They said CHAMPS behavior charts and a set of norms are displayed in every classroom. It's also created by the staff and norms developed by the staff and reviewed at every meeting and modeled for the staff. 2-minute relay breaks. I think that's supposed to be modeled for the teachers. I'm sure what principal put in that. To create small circles. They model small circles for teachers. Teachers create social contracts with their classes. That's from our Capturing Kids' Hearts. And one of the things I want to say, we use Capturing Kids' Hearts as a relational tool to build relationships with parents and students. We still practice some of those things. Angela has been very, very strategic in how the two meld. We're not doing two different things because that's a big part of your classroom procedures that CHAMPS follows. Also, creating teacher, student, and parent compacts are reviewed, and graduation tracking meetings are done every 6 weeks with well-developed plans to support the students. Questions, or if anybody from the audience wants to weigh in on that? There's your principals added there. Okay, the question was asked, how is the district utilizing the RTI process? So one of the things that we worked on this first year of 2020-2021 was Tier 1, which was really CHAMPS implementation. And then last summer, Angela Eisenberg worked with Amy Hildebrand, our district behavior specialist, on putting together an Rta framework. And that was presented, you'll see right here, I've given you a link to that. And everything that's involved. This is just the basic protocol that they developed based on what they were hearing from our campus MTSS teams and their needs. So we did an overview of that for the campus administration in July. All counselors and our CIS coordinators were trained in Tier 2 programs and provided their first set of resources on September 8th. Angela came and did 1 day of training with them with some of those Tier 2 programs that you see in that document. And then campus MTSS teams, RTI process, they had a refresher and data dig, which was just held on November 5th. So our campuses are all at, I think, a little bit different stage in the implementing RTI. Some are further along than others. That's one of the reasons Angela came back in to do a refresher, to set some of the guidelines for some of the folks that needed help looking at their data, help looking at who really needs to go to Tier 2. And I think that's even the plan she has offered to, while she's on campuses this week, when she comes, she's here for 5 days. She spends 1 full day at each campus. And her work is directed on those days by the campus principal and the MTSS staff team members. It can be professional development, something they need. It can be coaching teachers. I think even this week she's offered to them, if you're ready and you need help starting your first set of RTI meetings, I'll help you run the first set so you get your feet wet. If you need a review of the Tier 2 programs that are available that your counselor or your CIS worker can use, we can do that. So those are some of the things we've done thus far. Are we fully implemented? Absolutely not. We're still working on that.
So when is there an end date of we will be fully implemented in that process? I know that it's kind of campus by campus.
I have not set a date because I believe you have some campuses that are needing more help with Tier 2 than others. For me to set a date that, for example, all students are going to be at this level on this date, I have a goal, yes. They will all have it implemented this semester. Will it all be implemented at the same level? Probably not. Yeah. But they're ready to start identifying. I feel, principals, are you ready to identify your Tier 2 students? Is everybody at that point? I can tell you high school has already started some Tier 2 interventions. Junior high, I see Yamalet nodding. They met with Angela during her last visit in September and started digging through their data and getting some of their Tier 2 interventions going.
So I think this is, from when I was in the classroom, this was very helpful for me, this process and going through, and I was in the classroom years ago.
Right.
But going through and knowing, okay, this student, I'm gonna bring this student to my RTI committee because I'm out of ideas and I need more help. And I need an idea from a behavior specialist, I need an idea from a science specialist, something to move this child forward because we don't want these kids to be left behind. And I know that's everyone's sentiment and everyone's thought process, but I think the RTI process is huge in identifying students, because how are we pushing kids through if we're not going through the RTI process? How are we identifying kids 504 and SPED, or getting the services they need if we haven't even started the process yet? And so I think understanding that it is a process and the teachers need to know how it looks, but also knowing that it needs to be a fast forward. Because these kids.
And one of the things that Angela clearly outlined for the MTSS teams on Friday is that RTI is a process, a brainstorming, problem-solving process for some of those behaviors, but you will have behaviors that rise to the level that skip the RTI process, that go straight to tier 3. If someone is in danger, if someone is physically assaulted, it goes straight to tier 3. If you suspect a disability, it is a law that RTI cannot hold up a special education referral. And so if there's data collected that it looks like this could be part of a disability, we need to move forward.
I just think it's an important process
Yes.
for teachers to feel supported in the classroom.
Yes.
By people on their campus that are also them not just going to a principal and saying, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring it to our RTI committee this month meeting, and let's
And
talk
I will
about it.
say that the folks on the MTSS committees had extra training that the other teachers haven't had. They've had a little bit, they spend 2 days, I think. They've spent 2 days the first summer with Angela doing training, 2 days the second summer doing training with Angela. And then those campuses that currently have a past teacher who returned from last year, their past teacher has even above training that. Now,
That's certainly big.
are they still gonna be stretched thin? Absolutely. What I hear the teachers saying is that they still need a behavior specialist on the campus. And I think that's what Dr. Scott is recommending.
And I think that's.
To help facilitate this process.
Yep.
Absolutely.
She has no earthly idea that the process is unbelievable.
Who, I have no idea?
Yeah, no earthly.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I'm telling you.
Okay. Well,
This is everywhere.
I do understand this because I've been in the process, Priscilla, so thank you.
So I will say our process is not perfect, but we are, we want to improve it, and I hear what you're saying. We want to move as quickly as we can, but also move quickly with fidelity. And we're gonna work our way through that. Hey, the question was also raised about the PASS program.
All right, let's give Ms. Moya the floor back.
The question was also raised about the PASS program. What is the PASS program? So, oops, sorry. Here we go. So I did put a link in there for our school board members so they can understand what the PASS program is. It is an inclusive process, but it also is a process that traditionally has been for special education students. Starting last year, we opened that up also as a layer of tier 3 for regular ed students. And we're serving that some students on our elementary campuses with regular education. It's administered by a PASS teacher and of course a PASS administrator, which is one of our APs and or the principal who's ever been assigned to that job. Specific training requirements. Actually, I'm going to tell you, in the past, when I was a principal, our district did not do a good job of supporting the PASS teachers. They had a few trainings here and there as they came up from Region 3, but there was not intensive training. They did go through a 2-day PASS training, but that's not near enough to deal with the scope of behaviors that they're dealing with. So Angela brought to the district MTSS team an opportunity to have these teachers participate in a behavior coach endorsement program with Region 13, so that they could at least have more tools in their tool belt to deal with those tier 3 behaviors and those tier 3 students and special education students. Amy Hildebrand, our district behavior specialist, also went through the program with most of our past teachers last year. It is a 240-hour training program. It spans the entire school year, where they go 2 nights a month.
Two Monday nights a month from 6 to 9 and one
Zoom.
Saturday from 9 to 3.
So all of that was done via Zoom. And they go through a wide variety of training throughout the whole year with Angela, and then also other Region 13 consultants in Austin. And at the end, they have to display some competencies.
Yes, they have to present a presentation based off of the knowledge that they've received, and then they also have to complete like a final exam of sorts. It's a comprehensive questions where they have to really show that they process the information that's been provided and should be.
So this program does not certify them as a behavior specialist, but it does give them some skills to help coach other teachers who are having those behavior issues where, just what you said, Ms. Westmoreland, I don't know what else to do, what else can I try? Region 13 provides them with a lot of different resources. And then also it gives them those tools in their tool belt to do their job better with Tier 3 students.
Do we have a past teacher on everything?
We do not at Cherry. Our past teacher resigned right before the start of the school year, and Ms. Penix has had a hard time finding a replacement.
And what I will say is we do have an open position posted for a behavioral, like interventionist aid, like behavioral instructional aid, somebody that would serve in the capacity to go into the classrooms and assist administration and leadership when we do have significant needs within the classroom. However, that position has been posted for 2 months now, and I've interviewed a couple of candidates, but none of them have been equipped to fulfill the need that we have on our campus.
We do have 2 new past teachers in the district, one at Roberts and one at high school. People were moved around at the high school, and those folks are already starting the behavior coach program, so that, yes.
I also have my past, but I have 2 additional staff members also going through this program.
Yes, yes. Ms. Cummings chose to also send an extra teacher for the behavior coach program, and then one of her APs through the program also, so that they're very familiar.
But 2 teachers.
No, I'm sorry, 2 teachers. I'm sorry, we went back and forth. I can't remember who it is. But anyhow, just again, trying to build their resources, build their capacity. Watchdogs.
I got a question about that program.
Yes.
So there's been a recurring theme of, my kids have been telling me about it, I've heard from some teachers here, so I don't think that it's just something completely dismissed. We need to look into the kids that are going past, just sitting there watching YouTube, being rewarded for getting kicked out. That's ISS, okay.
Yeah, I think that's, I do hear what you're saying, that's a school suspension or consequence, passes and educational placement. Now, students can be, if a past student is having some of those Tier 3 behaviors, they can be pulled back into the past classroom for what they call reorientation. There's a whole process that goes through where they receive reorientation for however long it takes before they're reintegrated. And part of that is from, from their art meeting, their behavior plan. There's lots of pieces that go into that make that individualized for each student.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, so was it the past or was it ISS where we were getting feedback saying that we need one teacher to deal with these kids on a consistent basis so that they're getting like more emotional connection with the teacher or the instructor?
So I think that's where a behavior specialist would come into play.
And I think what you were hearing is that sometimes the ISS teacher is rotating, so it's not a consistent teacher. So, I'm sorry, I forgot this last link. This does show you what our staffing is for our past classrooms across the district and our number of students. So at Holmes, for example, we have 8 students in the, being served by the program who are eligible for special ed services, 2 that are not eligible for special ed students, but still receiving some type of support from the program. We have 1 teacher and 2 paraprofessionals that staff that. And you can see for each campus what that looks like. So in this program, Mr. West, it is the same teacher serving these students, I think, in ISS. I heard that concern also, but I believe they're talking about ISS. Okay. Watchdogs. Don't let campuses talk about watchdogs. Anybody want to talk about watchdogs?
We're ready to have y'all back.
Yeah.
But
Now, as we were out of commission because of COVID, but I think
I'll
everybody's
talk
ready.
about it a little bit, because I was they call it the top dog, but. I was the male leader at the teen home campus because my kids were there, so it was my job to coordinate with all the dads who wanted to come in, and Julia was an amazing person to be in charge of that program. And we had a lot of fun with the kids. We got to play soccer with them, and I know there's a Facebook video circulating about a high school in New Orleans or something. And right?
Yeah.
Very similar, but this is a nationally sanctioned and done program with a budget, and there's all kinds of stuff, and background checks are done. But you go in, you just spend the whole day in there, and it's just positive male role models, playing soccer with the kids, going to lunch with the kids. You know, you go to all 3 lunch breaks. You get to go visit your kids on that campus and spend 1 period with them, and then you go 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and all around. And about the 3rd time that I went in there, the kids started to know me, you know, and they give you high fives, and there's the watchdog, you know, so it's kind of, but I think we need it back, and it sucks that COVID really got us out of that. I get really busy this time of year with Marine Corps Toys for Tots, but in January, I'll do everything I can to be a part of that program and even get it started again if I have to. Grant?
Yes, sir. I was just going to say we actually have, with our new volunteer sign-up process through Easy Volunteer and Relatrix, we have a section specifically for watchdogs where parents can sign up and go through that, and they'll automatically do the background checks and all that. So we can start publicizing and getting the word out. Absolutely.
Is it up and running again?
It just takes some time to there's like kickoff parties and there's sign up times, and it just is like a big event to get it. And so it is, now that we've been given the okay for visitors, we're ready. Yeah.
We've had one at our school.
We had one that came who was previously background checked and all of that, so we made sure that he was current and all of that, but came and you had a kiddo at Cherry was opening car doors and welcoming students in the morning and bravely took on cafeteria duty. But yes, it was wonderful to have him on campus, and the students really, I know the students, the teachers, the staff, we all really appreciated having that guidance and that role model, so appreciate it.
And whatever that coach at Teen Homes tells you, I kicked her butt at soccer.
That's on video. She's going to hear that. She's not going to be happy.
I'll see her in the pickup line on Friday.
So again, I didn't add anything to this slide. I just simply put the question there, what discipline tactics and strategies are working. Specifically, board members wanted the perspective of teachers and administrators, and so I know administrators added some of this. I think we've heard some things from teachers that are working for some of our kids, but not all of our kids. I was encouraged to hear some of you talk about restorative circles have been beneficial for some of our kids. The PBIS app and what you're doing with positive behavior is great for some of our kids. But I'll open it up for y'all to also add anything else you'd like to add.
I just think our teachers do a phenomenal job of meeting our kids where they're at. We had teachers at some of the campuses go and see where the students live, and I think the parents were very receptive to that, and it opened our eyes to where our students are coming from. But it also tells the parent, like, I'm going to do everything I can to support your kid, and it just started us off on the right foot. And I just think our teachers do a phenomenal job of building those relationships when we're able to get a hold of parents and truly just telling the parents how much we care for their students. These women and these men spend more time with these kids than their parents do. And I think they do an amazing job building those relationships as they're able to. That is what is working for sure. It's just the work that our teachers are putting in although it's stretching them thin, it is seen. And we see it from the relationships and the kids wanting to be in this class and they're saying, I need to leave, I need to go to this class because my teacher's gonna be looking for me. They care as much about y'all as y'all do about them.
So I think what general approach to this is probably in the PowerPoint is, but we will send out a survey.
Yes.
Very simple. Don't have the exact questions that we'll ask, but I mean, something as simple as what's working, what's not working. So you really and truly are able to give us open-ended feedback about your specific viewpoint, your experiences, and how you feel about the program. And again, give you an opportunity just to speak openly and freely.
I think those surveys can be white, not color-coded per campus. Don't ask how long they've been there. Nothing on there can be tracked back to, okay, well, it's one of these two teachers that said this or filled this out. Like, just completely, just the questions, the answers written there, and that's it, on the same color.
And you hope, though, for me as an administrator, my hope is that I continue to build that relational capacity with my staff, that it doesn't have to be anonymous. Come and talk about it, because if I don't know how to help and how to support you, then I can't move forward in what I'm doing and what I'm doing wrong in that perspective. And so that also just gives me some feedback, Mr. West, that I need to build a better relational capacity with my staff if they're concerned about giving me that feedback. It does make me process things and say, if my teachers can't give me that feedback, what can I do differently to allow them that open, safe space?
Well, I think we have to jump above and go like even overboard to make them feel comfortable. Because I think we've been doing 10 years of conditioning of saying, don't bring up this stuff, just do what you're told to do. So we need to go and do, like, make sure they feel overwhelmingly confident that they can be safe in delivering these comments.
So one thing I do want to emphasize, Mr. West, as long as I've been in this position for 5 years, we have never done a survey that hasn't been anonymous.
But haven't they been color coded and they ask how long you've been here? And
Yes,
What campus you're on? Definitely. Cherry always got
One of
pink.
the things I do want to say, OHI does ask how long you've been here. It's not color coded.
But it was subject, school, and how long.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask, I will apologize. I did not ask that. I stand corrected.
So we've only got one 13th grade Southern teacher.
That's right. I apologize. I did not ask how many years you've been here and what subject you teach. But I will say they have not been color coded. And I will ask the principal, so you deliver data by content area, do you see that data that says how long teachers have been there? I've never seen that. That's why I stand corrected, because when I get the results, I haven't seen that data. That it looks like how many years you've been here or what subject you teach. All I see is the whole campus, how they respond. So I apologize. So you know what, maybe that's something we can change, because I did not know it asked.
So I think based on that reaction.
I see that they feel like,
An anonymous survey.
yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully the anonymous survey gives us the data we need to fix the problems, which then they'll be able just to come to you as things come up. But right now, it just seems to be overwhelming that there's a lot going on.
So anonymous by campus, but we have to have the data at least by campus.
I think campus is fine, but I think grade and subject and.
So at least it's segregated by campus.
if you ask, are you a science teacher at City Hall that's been here like 6 years or whatever, you're like, okay, that's me. Like, you might as well just put her name on.
Yes.
Well, and this is just a question. Would teachers feel more comfortable with a piece of paper rather than, would you be more honest on a piece? That's a lot of work for anyone to do that. So, hear me say that is a lot of work for people to go through and read comments and to put it in places.
But you're gonna get honest answers.
Right.
People are afraid to voice their opinions, they're afraid to voice their concerns. I'm telling you, if you don't feel like it's not gonna identify who you are, they're not gonna do it, and you're never gonna understand it all. Everything, you know, it's just.
So what I'm hearing is some sort of paper survey that is anonymously put maybe into a folder and collected.
And it needs to specify when it talks about admin, because there's different levels of admin. And I have a very hard time answering that. It's like, do you connect with your admin? Which one? Because if you're talking about my personal principal, you know, do I ever see this admin? Maybe not. And I feel like I'm, you know, I feel like I can't answer that because it's so broad.
It's too broad.
Right, it's too broad. It needs to be specific to which admin we're referring to in the question.
That's great feedback, thank you.
And thank you for letting me know that's on the survey, because I will talk to organizational health to see if that can be removed, because really, I've never seen that data, but we will remove it.
The feedback that we get from OHI, however, does not tell us where it comes from. It's really just a summary of where we need to improve as administrators.
And I still think it's important for that program to have that survey, because that program is designed, he came and presented, and Dr. Scott has hired this consultant to come in and do this. So I think we need to do that with Fidelity and continue doing it, but I also think there needs to be a space of some sort for people to get to the point that they feel like they can answer all of that fully, 100%. So maybe to get there, we can do baby steps, the written survey type deal. I don't know, just a thought.
Well, I would like to commend all of you for coming out tonight, and especially all of you that spoke tonight. But I also want y'all to understand that I am who I am, and I don't change. I feel you. I understand where you're coming from. I deal with what you're dealing with every single day. Every single day. It's tough. It's very tough. Know that we are here to support you. We stand with you. And whatever you need, we are here to help you. But we can't help you if you don't talk to us. If you only talking to a few of us here, I can't help you because I don't hear what they hear. And most of you know who I am. You need to come to me and talk to me. I can't help you if you don't talk to me. I don't see these people but once a month. And we don't communicate every day. I don't talk to them every day. I see them once a month. So if it's something that you need from me, you know where to come to me. Talk to me. And you know that I will be here to help you. And I will support you. But thank you for all that you do. For every single day that you wake up and you show up in that classroom, thank you. Know that I will never, never support a child putting their hands on you, disrespecting you, none of that foolishness. And I stand with you every single day. And I appreciate everything that you do. So thank you for every single thing.
Next question that was posed by board members is there a chart of behaviors or consequences that can be shown to parents and students? So first I wanted to link the chapter 37 discipline code link. You just need something to help you sleep at night. Read chapter 37 code. This is a chart, but this is more of a chart that talks about mandatory expulsions and felony charges. So this was a complex question for me to answer, because yes, there's some charts, but not probably a chart that addresses everything. Chapter 37, of course, guides the student code of conduct. The student code of conduct, if you read it, outlines available consequences that campus administrators have to them for certain offenses. It's not an exact chart, you do this, this happens, because chapter 37 outlines by law that an administrator must investigate an offense and must take into account the intent of the offense, what the circumstances were, how it occurred, were there two parties involved, different situations as far as when they're assessing consequences. But I will say that one of the additional links I gave you is that at the beginning of this initiative, when Angela started working with the campus MTSS teams, one of the first tasks she walked them through is developing their own behavior matrix for their campus. I'm going to show you, for example, let's start with Cherry. I won't go through all of them, but Cherry, is it okay if I use yours? This is their school-wide discipline plan that talks about what they do, and then it does classify offenses into groups as far as level 1 offenses and what the consequences can be there for level 1 offenses, examples of level 2 behaviors that are handled by the attending staff member. And it does say chronic level 2 behaviors will result in a referral to the school administration. And then it gives some of the consequences that go with that. And then level 3, being the most severe behaviors, result in immediate referral to the school administrator. And you can see for each campus, of course, for pre-K kinder, it looks a little bit different than a format for basic and junior high. So it's a little bit different. So I don't know if that answers the question fully, but that's the basic layout of how those are divided.
So Lisa, if you go back to Cherry's, one of the questions that came up is that once you get to level 3, like why would a reminder of the champ's expectation be correct at that level?
I agree.
So I get it as an option, but quite honestly, if I've gotten all the way to 3, probably way past telling me about the expectations at this point. It's just a question about the model. Because if it's an option, and here's another thing as we talk about, if it's an option and then the administrators use it, then now you have teachers who may be kind of perplexed as to this is level 3, so you're just going to tell Marshall what the content. It's just a misalignment. The other piece of this is if your campus team is not talking about the discipline culture and responses to the infractions, then you're missing an opportunity. If you're shocked by the consequence that your principal or assistant principal administers, then there seems to be a disconnect. Maybe a one-off, but you should pretty much know once you actually work together as a team, if Marshall does this, then it's highly likely that the principal and the APs are going to do these things. And that has to come through having conversations about how they're responding, or maybe not necessarily responding as well. It may not be a part of the program, but it's definitely an opportunity for everyone to get on the same page.
So this is a living document, certainly MTSS teams can revisit. Would that be accurate, principals and Angela? That your MTSS team can revisit? And it's a living document that can be revised, absolutely.
So how often is this matrix, or I guess not matrix, school-wide discipline plans are what they're called? Are they looked, is it yearly it's looked at? I know you said it's living, so if someone said, I brought that to Dr. Scott's attention at level 3, I think we're a little past this with all of these behaviors. And it's not, it's on the same thing as Lenny, it's the same thing of, it's consistently very mild for a level 3 behavior versus the consequence. I think they're very disproportionate. And so I think that's where part of our problem is coming from. And if I'm hearing from the teachers as well, we're having these bullying, we're having these verbal assaults, but we're just reminding them of chance. And that may be a legal question as well. What legally, if they're doing these things, can be done to pre-K kinder, to 1, 2, to 3, 4, 5? Because I know it is varying of what can be done. So that was something that came to my attention when I was preparing for
I
this.
think that's where Terry is at right now, because of our age, we're just kind of like, what do we do? What consequence can we, not that we want to just give them consequence, but that's why you see the, reminding of chance, the peace path, because we want to keep that restored, we want to keep those relationships with the kids and with the parents. But that is where Terry is right now, as we have 4 and 5-year-olds, we can't send them home. We can't,
There has to be something better when the kids are slapped in the face, punched in the face, to go back to class.
Right.
It just-
And so that was my question to Dr. Scott was, so what we're doing is not working. So what are we doing to shift what we're doing? To therefore provide services for those students? Because we're not just talking about the other 22 students. Like, I also really care about that one student who's doing that. And there's something happening there. So how do we come around that kid and help that student? And what are we legally able to do in that instance?
So there are some things outlined by law for younger students that just came into play 2 years ago, as far as when you can suspend, and when you can do ISS, and the offense has to meet a certain level.
For even pre-K kinder?
For pre-K kinder, first and second. Pre-K through second. There are some, it used to be that in your student code of conduct, that state law said those out of school suspensions, in school suspension, it was open just as it was for older students. That law changed about 2 years ago. So I can't answer your question because it's an individual situation, whether that offense rises to that level as outlined in law. But as far as the wraparound services, what you're describing to me sounds like what tier 2 is. Tier 2 and tier 3 services for those students. Absolutely.
So then again, it goes back to RTI and getting that in place.
Yes, ma'am.
And that I do know what I'm speaking about when I talk about RTI.
So, also, you'll see in here the other behavior matrix, for the other campuses. And then I'll move on because the question was asked, what is DAP? DAP stands for Disciplinary Alternative Education Program. How is the program administered? Right now, we have a DAP for junior high students and a DAP for high school students. And DAP is in the student code of conduct for younger students as well. It's just that you have to separate them from the secondary students. You have to have a separate setting. We've done that before. Are there specific goals and metrics? I do not know that. I do not have an answer for you that we have any goals and metrics for DAP, other than measuring our students repeat offenders. I could probably pull data like that. I don't have that readily available, but that would probably be the goals and metrics that we have for DAP.
Well, I think another question in that is, when they're in DAP, what does that environment look like? What are the expectations for those students, and are they clearly communicated? And if they break an expectation, what is the consequence for that student?
So I'll ask the principals to talk about that, the secondary principals, as far as the education piece of that. The instruction piece, our students go to the DAP setting and receive most of their instruction either via Odysseyware, which is an online learning program, or in a combination with whatever's going on in the classroom posted on Google Classroom. So all learning is remote, I can tell you that piece, but the expectations I'll let the principals talk about.
All the learning is remote, however, we do have a lot of support systems at the high school. I know I see our teachers during the conference period, if they know that a certain student is falling behind, they go during their conference period and tutor them or coach them up on what they're falling behind. So that additional support piece is added. We also have counseling support that is added. Our students get counseling before they go in, they get counseling when they come out. on goals, and we set up, get together really with the parent, the counselor, the principal, and the student, and we set goals on how not to go back. And what is that is going to take and what supports they're going to have so they don't go back. But what they're in there, they're also started working on restorative practices, and they work about on the different choices that they're making and that they should not be making. On the other hand, just like we are providing supports, we're also making sure that they have clear expectations on how to behave. And although I do not like expelling, because that means our kids will be out in the community without an education, I have always been 100% supported when I bring a expulsion before Dr. Scott.
Thank you all for the extra support. That's where I think we are meeting our students' needs of coaching them up and saying, this is why you're here, and now let's talk about how we can stay out of here. Do y'all touch back with students?
We do.
When if they're released after 14 days or whatever it is, do y'all bring them back in 30 days and do a touch point, or what does that look like?
Speaking about the RTI process, some of the things that we are doing to support the kids, for example, this was the end of the 6 weeks. As of right now, I already know all my ESL students that fell, all my seniors that fell, and we are scheduling graduation tracking meetings. And we sit with the parent, the student, the counselor, and we develop goals on how we're not going to fail the next 6 weeks. And truly give them realistic goals. And we go ahead and schedule the meeting for the following 6 weeks to see how they're going to do. And then if our supports are not sufficient, we also reach out and see what other supports we need. There are times that it doesn't work.
Right.
We had a meeting this morning, and it failed last 6 weeks. It still failed this 6 weeks. And we sat there and we talked to mom about what mom was going to do and what we were going to do. And sometimes parents, you do this and I do this. And sometimes it works.
Right.
I want to say, I'm proud to say most of the time works. So for the lower level schools, please don't give up. They really do well by the time they graduate.
It sounds like a lot of those items where we're talking to them with the counselor before they go and talk to the counselor after, or we're reinforcing expectations, all of this stuff. That'd be great to have at Cherry also, but it's a virtual setting. There's no way a pre-K kid is going to be virtual. So how would you do a TAP setup in those lower levels?
Yeah, actually, he is not an allowed setting.
Oh, I thought you said we've done it before.
For teen halls.
Oh, for teen halls.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry, yeah, for younger as far as teen.
We're not
halls.
even allowed to,
Yeah,
like, in
for little
school
ones.
and out of school suspend at.
I know you weren't allowed to do out of school. I
Right.
know you weren't allowed to do it.
Yeah, actually, the continuum is in school, if you're looking at most restricted placement, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, and then DAP is probably our most restrictive setting right now, because we don't have a JJAP. If we had a JJAP, that would be the next step. Yes, sir. So the question was also asked about the staffing, how is it staffed? See, these are our numbers as of last Monday when I posted this in board book. Junior high had 16 students, high school had 14. Right now, junior high, I believe their teacher is they have a teacher, but not there right now on medical leave. They have 2 long-term subs right now, and high school has 1 teacher and 1 paraprofessional. Is that correct?
Correct.
So it's still accurate?
Based on the numbers that we have a couple additional, so we actually have a third person in there.
A third person that you've added since I did these numbers.
Yes.
And then there was a question about the police officers and assignments, and I'll let Chief speak to that. You gave me these numbers. Would you mind speaking to this, Chief?
Certainly. We have a total of 7 officers. We have 2 at the high school. You see on the chart there, 2 at Bay City Junior High School. We have 1 at Holmes and 1 at Roberts, and we have 2 vacant positions at this time. So what we try to do, we try to make sure that we maintain 2 officers at the main campus, which is Bay City High School and Bay City Junior High. And we do our best to keep an officer at each one of the elementary campuses. When we are short, we rotate those officers around and make sure that they're secure covered throughout the day. So right now we have 2 vacancies, and we're in the process of trying to fill those at this time.
Chief, would you mind
mind talking, because I've heard conversations about what the police officers are and aren't allowed to do when it comes to children and fights and incidents with the discipline and all of that. Can you draw a line and what?
So, maybe 10 years ago, police officers in the school system were allowed to, it helped to enforce discipline issues, which consisted of classroom disruption, fighting, chewing gum, bus disruption. All those things were part of the system back then. Also, we were issuing Class C citations at that time. But then Senate Bill 11 came into effect, I think, 2 years ago. And so it said school police officers can no longer intervene in disciplinary issues when it comes to the discipline aspect of dealing with our students. However, we can have informal contact with them. What that means is that if a student is fighting or students are fighting, once those students are broken up and then they are turned over to our administrators, then we can go back in if it's not a criminal issue, if they have not committed a aggravated assault or an assault that would raise the level where law enforcement needs to get involved. We can go back in, and what our officers are trained to do is that we go in and we try to redirect them with their behavior and try to explain to them the consequences if it was raised to another level. That answers your question.
So if there's a fight right in front of the police officer, they can't do anything.
If there's a fight right in front of the police officers will intervene to help for safety reasons. And then an administrative investigation must be done. According to the law, administrative investigation must be done. That's what I was talking about. I was talking about we can have informal contact, but not formal contact, because the law states that the administrator must do an administrative investigation. What we're there for is to make sure that we don't let anybody get hurt. That's the main thing. What you don't want is, Mr. Webb, is you don't want the police to grab, kids and, because all that, if they're fighting and scratching and pulling hair, you don't want the police to, have to get into the criminal side. We want them to make sure that they learn before they get involved in the criminal aspect.
So that concludes the questions that were posed by board members regarding behavior and discipline. And then, based on teacher input that Dr. Scott has collected with individual teachers and groups of teachers over the last couple of weeks, and then in his discussions with board members, I think you've gone through most of these recommendations.
That's going on all over.
You did, you stole the thunder. It's like you actually put that slide at the beginning, then did everything.
So at this time, again, I want to reiterate what we heard from the trustees. We're here to support you. We do take this concerning opportunity that we have around discipline very seriously. We want to get this right. We want to work together to get this right. I want to say kudos to the board, kudos to teachers. No one came out. I didn't hear anybody coming here actually pointing fingers. Everyone came here asking for support and help. And quite honestly, you deserve it. For the teachers, I always say decisions should be made closest to implementation. And there's no closer person to our kids than you are. So why aren't your voices the loudest in guiding the work that we actually do? I hear you. And for those of you who I've had one-on-one conversation with, I've been hearing you. So it's just time for us to take the next step. What I would say to the board as we move along with this work, I think some of the programs that we actually have long-term, we really need to assess the benefits of those programs, and even some of the positions that we actually have, not classroom positions, not teaching positions. We just want to ensure that we're using our resources in a way that's going to be beneficial to what our goals are. So, once again, thank you all. We hear you, and we look forward to really truly being more involved in the work that we're actually doing as a help to get this done.
On your higher behavior specialist recommendation for campus, can we look out and see? I know there's a lot of districts that have behavior specialists per campus. Can we get like a an estimate of how many kids are assigned per each behavioral specialist, so that they're, like, we don't just put one at each campus, but then one person has 60 kids to them, like, that's not realistic for them to make a difference with those kids. Maybe we need to at that campus, or can we just make sure that the number of kids going to each behavior specialist falls in line with what it should be?
Yes. Yes.
How do we hold ourselves at this table accountable to reporting back to all the staff members, parents, and everybody that had these concerns? What are going to be our steps of communication so that in 2 months we're not still talking about some of the same things?
So, in reality, I don't, please forgive me, I don't think it's the board's responsibility to actually present out. That's the responsibility for the administration, to hold us accountable. So as we continue to do the work as far as the tiered model, where we are with the update for how, once we build the profile for the behavior, that's for us to come back and actually share with the board, and even share with whether it be an email or what have you, just updates for the staff as well. So absolutely, that responsibility is on me. But if in fact we want to come back, I'd say after 3 or 4 months to present something in this model, just to get some additional feedback on what's going well, what's improved, what hasn't, I think that would be a good opportunity as well. I think it's always good to hear from teachers directly and school staff.
So yeah, after hearing from the teachers, I don't want to be your teacher. Y'all don't get paid enough. I tried to write down. I tried to write down all the acronyms that you have to learn, and there's pages and pages of MTSA, and social contracts, and past students, and tier 1 through 3, and RTI, chapter 37, 504, and I'm sure there's many more. Yes and no. We do our best every year. I'll say that, and I hear your frustrations, because this stuff is, not to say it's all bureaucratic, but it's all on paper. Somewhere you got to read it and learn it and do it, but it works for 95% of the kids. And I hear the frustration tonight is from the 5% that it doesn't work for. The 5% that need prayer, the 5% that aren't going to benefit from a 26-to-1 classroom, the 5% that need help at pre-K getting going, the 5% that think ISS is fun because we made it fun for them. The 5% that get sent home and are allowed to return the next day after they've assaulted somebody. The 5% that benefit from more staff in the hallways, and more staff in the classroom, and more staff in the lunchrooms. And so that's what we really need to focus on, in addition to everything else. And it needs to be part of a comprehensive plan. And I look forward to seeing what you come up with to address And as far as accountability, I think it is our responsibility to the point, right? It's your responsibility to put it together, and I look forward to that. I want to see a white paper, yellow paper, I don't care what color the paper is, anonymous survey handed out to the teachers. That's my ask, and if we can do that, I think it would be great. What we're going to have is, we're going to have a lot of comments on there, and they're going to be open, and some of them are going to hurt, some of them are going to be good. And then we come back 4 months later after we put your great plan in place and say, are you now getting the support that you need? Did a student who got sent to the office for hitting another kid get the behavioral specialist involved, get the support they needed, and weren't just allowed to return? And then the next survey comes back, and we've got half of the teachers saying, absolutely, thank you, that helps, we need to do more, here's where I think we can make the next step. So I think we should be held accountable and at least offer that if we can do that. So those are my 2 cents.
And I jotted some stuff down too. To all the teachers and parents here tonight, based on the reaction from the crowd when talking about surveys, it's obvious that there is a culture of fear and intimidation in our district, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being brave enough to speak up about the out-of-control behaviors and lack of discipline in our schools. I've heard enough from enough of you to know that we didn't get to where we are as a district overnight, and there have obviously been some serious failures on the part of leadership that as a board we must also address. This burden will not fall solely on your backs. The 2 women I love most in this world My mother and my wife are educators. I believe with all my heart that teaching is one of the most important, yet one of the most difficult professions in our society. I see your struggles. I've heard your cries for help. Please know that I've got your back and am 100% committed to fixing this problem.
I'm gonna say something too, because I was saying something. I'm not gonna speak for anybody else out here, and we've gone through several trainings and everything, and it's all about accountability, and I wanna let y'all know that I almost started crying when we were talking earlier. I personally have failed y'all on this issue, and I'm so sorry. It has been something that I've been trying to do, and I just haven't been getting any traction, and I'm no excuses. I have not given you the tools that you need to make your lives better. You're wanting to quit or lose good people, and I am part of the problem because I didn't get it fixed. So I'm sorry, and please use today as motivation, as getting excited about, hey, we can make a change here. Keep on giving us this information because this is what we need to get this curve or the ship right. Please. Thank you for everything that y'all do. We love you. We really do.
I think I've said everything earlier, but what I didn't say was that I do, and I have Kimmy, I teach Kimmy. And I have 2 of those students that y'all were talking about, 2 of them. And every single day, I deal with those 2. And the first week, I wanted to give up. I went home crying every single day, thinking it was no way on this earth I was going to return the next day. I was as stubborn that I couldn't turn my back on the kid because I'm a mom, I'm a grandmother, and I'm a teacher. And that mom in me kept saying, I can't. The grandmother in me kept saying, you can't. The teacher in me kept saying, you can't. I'm still dealing with those 2. Every single day is a challenge. They meet me at the front door, teacher, teacher. And I said, oh, we're going to have a good day? And he said, yes. 8:10, it starts. And it goes all day long. All day. I am testing, they're pulling, and I'm teaching around them. But the teacher in me says it's someone's child. By the grace of God, I'm making it. And I will continue to do it because it's the teacher in me. And I have to remember it's someone's child. And as long as I keep that in my forefront, I will continue to deal with it because it's someone's child. And it could be mine. It could have been yours. And I think, what if it was mine? But I want somebody to give up on my child. It could be my grandchild. But I want somebody to give up on mine. So I will deal with it. Am I saying you have to? No. For 45 years I've been doing this, I've never lost a child. And I won't lose these 2. I'll fight till the end. Just in someone's child. I will do it. So stand on the battlefield. Stand on it. We can do it. If I can do it at 67, you can do it at 30, 20, whatever. You can do it. I got you back. I believe in you. I believe in Bay City. I believe in KCISD. Thank you.
I want to thank you first for being courageous because it takes a lot to come into this room and to say what you said, whether you stood at that podium or whether you spoke up when something came up and it was collective as a group. And that takes a lot of courage. And I really do appreciate it because nothing will change unless we have people speaking up. And that is the whole purpose of this meeting, to hear from the people that are in the trenches, from the parents that are at home, for the students that don't have those parents that come up here. We all have those kids in our classroom. So thank you for being courageous and coming, but also know that this is not just a Bay City ISD problem like that has been said over and over. This is a whole entire United States world problem. And it's going to take innovation, and when we get into that territory, we're going to fail. Like innovation, you're going to fail. So know that we are taking this, and I am taking this very seriously, and I will continue to have conversations with Dr. Scott. But there will be failure, and so I ask for grace in the process, because it is going to be a process. And to get from a good district to a great district, it's going to take courage, it's going to take patience, and it's going to take persistence. So if anything, I would ask you to continue to speak up, to continue to email us, reach out to your administrators. They care. Dr. Scott cares. I care. I would say everyone at this table cares about you. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for the courage that it took to come to this place.
This is probably the best attended and most important meeting we've had in a long time. Thank you all. I'm going to be brave here and open the floor to anybody who wants to make a comment really quick, because I'm going to pull the board into closed session with a couple questions I have, and so we can consult with our attorney as well. But I don't want to disappear and you guys wait for 30 minutes or 10, 5, or however long it is, and come back out and everybody was either waiting or left. So yes, ma'am, in the back.
Okay, I said I wasn't going to talk, but I can't. And I'm going to be quick because I know we're all tired. That 10%, 5%, whatever the percent is, which is not that many, but that little percent can feel like 90%. And I think where most of us get extremely frustrated is all the teaching time we're losing, and we feel like we're sacrificing those 18, 19 other kids to deal with that small number of kids. And that can be very frustrating because it's not fair to those other kids that they're losing their learning time and you're losing your teaching time. For me, just speaking for me, that's one of the big aggravations, and I feel sure other people feel the same. But nobody is giving up on these kids. We love these kids. I don't feel like any of us are wanting to give up on these kids, any of them. That's part of the reason I came back to this district.
One of the things that I feel is that our class sizes, we're sitting at 22 plus kids, and I'm with y'all on doing the behavior specialists and all that, but if we don't get our class sizes smaller, we're not going to do much. We're going to be spinning our wheels, basically, because when you're sitting there with 22 plus kids in a classroom that was designed for 22 minus kids, you're out of space. You're out of the kids. They get frustrated because they don't have the ability to move around and do what they need to do, and we can't do the lessons that we want to do a lot of times because we just don't have the space. And so it causes a lot of the behaviors to get out of hand quickly. So, anyway. So I want to kind of comment on a couple of things. Mark was saying, the last 10 years, it seems like we have been told, and I know y'all have had this conversation with Dr. Scott. I've taught with a lot of people in this room because I've been at 3 different schools in 15 years. not because I got moved. Just saying. But I can tell you, I have been in schools where teachers have had emails sent to them that they have to meet with the principals because they had too many write-ups in a certain amount of time. And that's within the past 15 years. And I want to say that some of those teachers may even be sitting in this room. That tells me that a principal's telling us we can't write that many kids up. I mean, that's logic. So it has been said, it may not be the principals in the super that we have right now, but it has been said. And when we're told that for a long period of time, and then we get new leaders in, and they're like, oh no, it's like teaching kids. If you teach them wrong, it takes 3 times as long to undo that. We are products of that. We're products of leaders saying you're replaceable. Well, no, we're not, because I know for a fact we have openings all over the district and we can't hire teachers. So now we know we're not replaceable. And I'm going to nicely say, I am very outspoken with my administrators, with Dr. Scott, with y'all. And part of the reason is I'm not replaceable. I go to school, I say school, but I go to work and I do my job and I try to do the best I can. And part of it is I graduated from here. I have a kid here. My nieces and nephews are here. My mom retired from here. I'm not going anywhere, but I think people have that mindset, and it is, like Ashley said, it's something that has to be, like, we have to be untrained to have that mindset because people are scared to speak out. Teachers come to me and say, hey, da 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 da, but I'm afraid to say it when you say it. Well, obviously there's some kind of issue there. So that's my first point. My second is, like Ms. Davis said, that 5% makes a huge difference. And we do get frustrated. And I will say, as a parent of a student who does not get in trouble, he's not perfect, but he does not get in trouble. He's never been written up. Nothing infuriates me more than the kids that are constantly causing problems, and then he comes home and says things like, well, so-and-so got in trouble, but they got to do this today with the principal.
Yes.
There you go. Okay? It's hard to tell your kid, well, sometimes, things aren't fair, and sometimes they have to try other things that work, but to the good kids, it looks like he got reported for cussing at a teacher, or whatever reason. Or something happens in the cafeteria where the whole 5th grade sees it, and I'm saying 5th grade, and I hate to say it, but it's my own personal child, so right now I'm talking as a parent. And he comes back and says, oh, he was back at school today. Like, I don't know how to, and I'm just saying this, as a parent that is also an educator, I don't even know how to answer those questions for my child. So somewhere there's something, miscommunication, whatever, we've had this discussion, but somewhere we've got to fill those gaps in so that the communication is there, so that parents understand the rules, the procedures, the consequences, teachers understand it, admin understands it at a campus level, but the district admin also understands it. I don't know if any of that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I have.
You're correct, they're not replaceable. Everybody at this table is replaceable.
Yes. We vote.
One last comment I wanted to make was, it's almost fearful to speak out, but not because of because I feel like y'all put us through more training when we ask for help. I'm being so serious. It's like we say, hey, these kids are misbehaving. Let's put us go through this much training. I'm like, we're not the ones who need training. Like, the kids need training. The parents need training. Like, I know how to run my classroom. Please don't post more training.
I'm a retiree rehired. Crazy.
So,
And I'm 73, so you have have nothing. But what I don't understand, and I've been back in about 3 years, the children, when they go crazy, we can't stop them. And like I've had one this year, he flipped every table. We got all the children out, but he flipped every table over, every chair. Why can you not stop them from doing that? Then they have to put it back, but that's what I don't understand.
Well, I think that I appreciate, like, the high school, they do such a great job, and I commend y'all always, y'all have a great program. And it sounds like the junior high is doing all these great things, but to like have a significant change within our whole district, it has to start at the bottom. And it's terrifying sending a kindergarten, is gonna run out of the classroom onto first grade, that's already academically behind and now is a safety risk. And so I appreciate everything that everybody does, but I feel, I am a kindergarten teacher, so I don't wanna just like do that. But if we wanna have a significant change that lasts long term, the foundation that's provided at the lower grades has to be stronger, because we're setting them up for failure throughout their academic career and helping cause these social emotional problems that are just getting worse with technology and the social media and everything else, where we, if we can fix it when they're young and they still love us and they are playing in our classrooms, then I feel like that's where our work needs to, I don't want to say start, but a huge focus needs to be brought to the lower grades.
Couple more, anybody else? I don't see any hands up, so maybe.
So this also goes off of what Ms. Kramer was saying about staffing, and I've had this conversation with everybody, so I'm just gonna say in front of the board, because y'all, I think, make these decisions. But, so we're on campus with 3 grade levels. Junior high has 3 grade levels. We are seeing behaviors that when I was a junior high teacher, I saw in 7th grade students. Now I'm seeing them in 4th grade, some even in 3rd grade. But when you look at our staff numbers of leadership, numbers of teachers, all of that stuff, it's not equal. We have 1 principal, 2 assistant principals. I may be speaking out of turn, so someone can correct me, but last year on the junior high campus, I believe they had 1 principal, an academic dean, and 3 APs. Is that correct? We had 1 principal and 2 APs, same amount of kids, seeing the same amount. We have the same amount of programs, we have the same, it's literally the same setup, and we're seeing these behaviors get younger and younger, but then we aren't staffed the same. We have 1 counselor, they have 2. Like, I feel like we need to kind of catch up with the times, because our children are starting things at a much younger age now. Part of it's social media. But we need to catch up with the times, that if we're seeing kids that are doing things that they shouldn't be in 4th grade, that is stuff I saw as 8th graders, that we need to have the same leadership there. We need to have the same programs in place at our campus. We need an ISS room with a staff teacher that doesn't change every day. And I know part of our problem this year is space, so I'm happy to hear that we're trying to get the building rolling. But if it's gonna take 2 years to build that wing, maybe we need to have a portable put in to give us more space so that we can open our ISS and get a full-time teacher or para or whoever, but that it doesn't change to those routines and procedures and expectations stay the same.
From my understanding, it shouldn't take 2 years.
Oh, well, that's good.
I also predict future rain and everything else.
Well, let's just not use the same contractors and we do.
Once a week. 1 more. If any. Okay, we're going to go into closed session. Item 5, pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.082, to discuss student discipline matters. And we will also consult with our attorney about legal issues pertaining to student discipline matters pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.07. And it is a bring us back into open session at 9:35. And before we ask for adjournment, any final
It
comments?
is 9:35.
Huh? Yeah,
Oh, it is 9:30. That
Yeah,
says
no.
10:30. I'm like, why are we?
I think we are IT guys. Any other final comments under open session, discuss student code conduct? Dr. Scott, any closing comments? Anybody else? Very good. I just want to make sure we didn't close it. Item 6, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn been made by trustee Westmoreland. Is there a second to her motion?
Second.
Ms. Priscilla said it 3 times, and we'll give it to her if you don't mind. Motion been seconded by trustee Robinson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. We'll see y'all next week.